evening, everyone, and welcome to the June 24th regular council meeting. Corporate officer, do we have any late items tonight?
No late items.
Okay, thank you. Could I ask someone to approve the agenda as presented, please? Councillor Traynor and Councillor Patton, all those in favor? Great. And then on to item 4.1, adoption of the minutes, committee of the whole meeting May 13th, regular council meeting and special council meeting May 13th, regular and special council meeting May 27th, and regular meeting on June the 10th. Any errors or omissions? May I have someone bring that forward, please? Councillor Carlson, Councillor Patton, all in favor? Great. And delegations tonight, so we're quickly on to item 6, public comment opportunity. That is a period of 15 minutes maximum. If you wish to speak, simply come to the podium. You have 2 minutes to speak. You can comment on any of the items that you see on either one of the monitors there, and please respect the 2-minute warning process and leave the podium. Thank you.
Okay, my name is David Gregory, 110 Sumac Ridge, and I wish to speak on item 11.7, the solar energy. First of all, I support solar energy. I think that's the way to go in our community, but a few points to make. Number one is, for 26 years, the plan for the community was to develop on the hillside and put less pressure on farmland. Okay. Number 2 point is, to effectively develop hillsides, you need sewer. Third point is, the potential solar farm site is the part where you want to make attractive to the developer, so the developer pays for the sewer as it extends into Prairie Valley. That's the only way we can afford to do it, is have a developer pay for the sewer extension. And the fourth thing that hasn't been talked about too much is, this plan's been in the works for 26 years. The sewer infrastructure is designed so the maximum capacity pipe is directed towards Prairie Valley. So if there's going to be a change in direction of growth, someone's going to have to pay for the change in the capacity of the piping in the system. It's been in place now since 1998. And another point that hasn't been discussed too much, and it's important, is a complaint in Prairie Valley is drainage. And if we could put sewer into the hillside, we'd have storm sewers to minimize water drainage into Prairie Valley. Thank you.
Thank you, David.
Hi, Brad Besler, 11815 Prairie Valley Road.
And you're commenting on?
The development variance permit, is that 10.1?
Yes, that is. You have the opportunity to comment on the development variance permit when it is before the council later on in the.
Should I?
So you'll have the opportunity. Yes, thank you very much, Brad.
Good evening. Peter Waterman, 12232 Saunders Crescent. Some of you may recognize me. I'd like to address, good evening, Mayor, Boot, and Council and staff. I'd like to address item 11.7. The previous council, of which 5 current councillors make up the majority of this current council, after examining the existing urban growth area of the time, this is back in 2015, the community plan, we decided to include Deer Ridge, Deer Ridge area within the urban growth area, along with other adjustments. The object was to allow for a potential urban development of district-owned lands, part of which is a site now considered for the solar development. This was to give certainty to the development community as to the district's future intentions for the Deer Ridge area. With the full Deer Ridge area desperately requiring sewer, and the potential 75 Terry subdivision above Deer Ridge to come on stream with city-sized lots requiring sewer, and new housing on district lands, sewer would become financially feasible up through the Deer Ridge area. It's very unfortunate that the very certainty that the last council put in place for this area is now in jeopardy. The fact that this siting is being considered is exactly what the previous council was trying to avoid. This will now again make it difficult for the development community to believe that council's plans will remain in place. Later, in the latter part of our past term, Mr. Terry tried to move to larger lot sizes to avoid the need for sewer. We actually turned him down on that request because we realized we needed more lots than would be provided for the 1 hectare sizing where you're allowed to go for septic. Anyway, that's all I have to say, other than, I certainly agree with the last speaker with respect to solar. We were all over it as a past council.
Thank you, Peter. Your time is up.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, John Russo, 10834 Dunham Crescent. I'd also like to speak to point 11.7. Having spent the majority of my life running around on that hillside, on my mountain bike or chasing mule deer or whatever, and then now being in the growth part of our life and existence in Summerland, I would like to second the last two presenters in regards to the importance of being able to develop that area. When you take a look at how many jobs construction creates in this community, it's vital. Not only being a contractor myself, but also being a homeowner and somebody who loves architecture. The availability of suitable building lots in this community is dismal and an embarrassment. And I think that though the solar farm will create jobs and clean energy, we could generate as much energy off of new roof lines created in a development that could potentially service our energy needs. So, yeah, that's all I got to say about that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi there, I'm George Giannotti. I'm with Okanagan Development Consultants in Summerland here. I'm a building designer and
Please state your address, your home address for the record,
My
please.
address is 17007 Garnet Valley Road in Summerland.
Thank you.
I just wanted to, and I'm speaking on items 10.1, your development bylaws that you're bringing up for first reading. I just want to make a comment that I strongly believe that these bylaws are going to create a massive cost to taxpayers in this town. These bylaws are quite stringent as far as even some of the bylaws that are surrounded by the regional district, City of Penticton, City of Kelowna, and that I think these bylaws should be brought back for public consultation, and hopefully that the council and the staff can work with the development community, not just contractors, but also the developers. We've been through a few applications, and currently at this stage I'm working on a project in town that I've been asked to bring in architects on, and the current regulations don't require that. But I see you have brought in those requirements into the new bylaws. So therefore, I'd really appreciate the fact that even some of the small projects are going to have to go through massive consultant reviews in order to get them passed by the inspection department here, that this should come back to public consultation. Thank you.
And it will.
Good evening, Joe Walkerbauer, President of Okanagan Custom Homes Limited, second-generation construction company in Summerland, and also President of the Canadian Home Builders Association in South Okanagan. And I'm speaking to 10.1 as well.
May I have your residential address, please?
Yeah, it's 23810 Garnet Valley Road.
Thank you.
So I just found out about this bylaw today, and I'm wondering why it was not made public, first of all. So I believe that these bylaws should not be passed until there is a public review, consultation followed up with a report submitted to the council for consideration. I've had a very brief read of it and concerned about the different development regulations that are going to be imposed on Summerland's building industry. These bylaws appear to be considerably more stringent than our neighbors in Peachland, West Kelowna, Penticton, and the RDOS building authorities. So we've adopted the STEP code, and that's to make all the building authority regions consistent in their applications for building permits, development, and regulations. And I believe this would be pushing that whole organization in the wrong direction. So by introducing these bylaws, I believe development will come to a further standstill, affecting our tax base in Summerland, and Summerland's reputation as a tough place to develop would be actually made even worse. So I don't think it's very fair that the community rush through these changes in the bylaws until we do a proper due process. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Sarah Willard, 8208 Giants Head Road. I'm speaking on behalf of item 11.6, the rental property at 7646 Dent Street. On behalf of my friend Tanya Riopel, I'm going to cry now. She didn't want to speak because she thought she would cry, but no, I'm going to. In regards to this, speaking on behalf of Tanya and Matt and their 2 children, they came to Summerland because their house burnt down in the fire on Fort Mac. I thought I could do this. In any case, they've been members of our community since September of 2016. They want to live here. They want to stay here. They spent summer holidays here before, and they've fallen in love with our community. They need a new beginning. Any case, yeah, the family, the children have gone through a lot of traumatic issues, of course, losing their home and their community. It's taken a full, well, basically 3 years to recover from this, and they're both really doing well. Their son is in grade 3 at Tread Creek. Their daughter is in grade 7 at Summerland Middle School. And so basically through no fault of their own, they're finding themselves in this situation. So, oh God. Thank you. Anyway, the family recognizes that there is a problem with the house. I don't understand what the sudden failure issue was in the paper, as it was pumped last year. Tanya has reported issues throughout the past, sounds like the past 12 or 13 months. Previous calls were made, including in February of 2019, so the fact that they now have to have immediately vacate the properties is extremely difficult. We basically ask that the council consider a compassionate way to help them. Whatever that means. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. Is there anyone else that would care to make a public comment on any of the items listed? All right. Carry on with item 7, which is my mayor's report. It is with great pleasure that I start my report tonight with the grand opening of the Summerland Skate Park last Saturday. My very rough estimate is that 60 to 70 young people were present to celebrate the occasion, along with their parents and other Summerland residents and guests. Music, food, giveaways, demonstrations, and activities for kids made it a fun event for youth of all ages. The Summerland Skate Park is collaboration at its best. Our thanks again to all who partnered with the district to see this vision come to life, including Penny Lane Charity Society, School District 67, Summerland Credit Union, and individual contributions from the community, and the district staff that made the opening such a celebration. On June the 13th, Councillor Holmes and I attended a half-day primary care network workshop organized by Interior Health and the South Okanagan Similkameen Division of Family Practice. We heard that 12,000 residents in Summerland and Penticton are currently without family physicians. They're referred to as unattached, and that this number is expected to rise to an estimated 22,000 people within 5 years. We received an excellent overview of what a primary care network service delivery model looks like and how a team of healthcare practitioners can help address these unattached residents. Later that same day, I attended an announcement at the Penticton campus of Okanagan College about them being selected to host a Beverage Technology Access Center. The college was awarded $1.75 million in federal funding over the next 5 years for the center, which will provide testing and business services and applied research assistance to the beer, wine, cider, and spirits industries in the province. Congratulations to Okanagan College on your accomplishment. This TAC, as they're called, is a significant win for our whole region's beverage industries, and that includes throughout the province. On Monday evening, I and several of the councillors attended the Climate Action Open House. This community open house was held to gather input on which climate action initiatives are most important to you as Summerland residents, and we are looking at updating our community climate action plan. Initiatives under 5 general themes were presented, which included transportation, buildings, land use, renewable energy, and wastewater other, as well as other ideas that were welcomed. On June the 19th, I attended the first meeting of the newly elected Southern Interior Local Government Association, also called SILGA Board. It was a good group with several new members, and we read the very favorable comments about the Penticton Convention and are accepting the challenge to make the next convention, which is being held in Vernon, even better. So I hope that the councillors will look forward to that as much as I do. Later that evening, I attended the First Things First Okanagan Annual General Meeting and heard an update on their projects over the last year. This included a presentation by Ella Braden on the Cool It project, which challenged 4 classes in grades 6 and 7, so at our middle school here, to reduce their GHG emissions, greenhouse gas. Students undertook a number of projects to reduce 50 tons over the 4 weeks, such as helping to build a raised bed garden, hanging laundry to dry rather than using the dryer, making a meat-free dinner for the family, and picking up garbage while walking to and from school. Thursday was another long day that Councillor Holmes and I attended at the RDOS meeting, and I'll have him speak a little bit more about the RDOS meeting if he wishes. On Sunday morning, I joined 130 riders, so this was yesterday morning, for the Canadian Mental Health's Ride, Don't Hide event. It's a fundraiser for the campaign to end the stigma of mental health. Many, if not most of us, have had mental health matters that touch us, whether personally or with family or friends, and it is just as important as physical health. Later that day, yesterday afternoon, I attended the memorial service for Mr. David Campy held at the Penticton Trade and Convention Centre. Hundreds of people, including many Summerland residents, honored Mr. Campy for his philanthropic work through the years, most recently with the new Penticton Regional Hospital towers. Thank you. Yes. CAO.
Thank you, Your Worship. Happy to report on a number of activities actually over the last few weeks. You've touched on a few, and I just want, in terms of the skateboard park, acknowledge the work of many departments to pull that off. There's certainly some lead departments, but I know every single member of this senior team had some role to play in both getting it up built as well as the ceremony. So just an acknowledgement to all staff that did that. As well, the Climate Action Plan Open House, over 40 residents did attend, and it sounds like there was, a lot of positive feedback, so I won't go into details on that. Out of interest, Bike to Work Week was pretty successful. Staff logged over 160 kilometers and saved 34.35 tons of greenhouse gas. It's a little bit of a drive from Kelowna here, so I did not participate, but if I get in shape, maybe another time. Just to highlight in terms of my week, the last couple of weeks, some of the priorities for me, the South Okanagan Food Processing Agricultural Innovation Hub project is a project that's been kind of on the books for a couple of years. The community, the chamber, and the district council, this has been a priority to try to be selected for that. Unfortunately, there was a June 3rd, the provincial government put out a request for qualifications with a July 5th deadline, and so it's been pretty hectic around here with the help of Jane Compardo, a consultant who worked on some of the earlier works. We were able to pull the pieces together, and certainly without the mayor as being the constant in the equation, I'm not sure we'd make progress, but I think at this point in time, with the support of the college, the chamber, UBCO, and a number of other agencies around the valley, it looks like we'll be able to hit that deadline and come back to council with a report. Right now, it's still fluid. It's really about showing community support for the project as opposed to extensive details. So we'll come back. I had the pleasure of meeting the Summerland Housing Advisory Group, a group of citizens that were interested in furthering and dealing with some of the housing needs in Summerland. It was a good meeting. We met for an hour and a half at the chamber offices. Two key areas I think that were important. One is impediments to the development of housing, and some of these things, working with staff to talk about what kinds of things can we do to streamline process and those types of things. Had a good reception from Planning Director Gain and Mr. Patey on some of the ideas, as well as looking at the needs. What are the focus areas? What are the types of housing we need, using the 2017 report, and supplemented by some great sales statistics, historical, that Mr. Kubek provided me through the real estate office. I think we have a good package that we could start taking back to council and talk about where Summerland should be focusing and trying to see what piece of the housing spectrum we should be concentrating on. So thanks again to the advisory group of citizens and for their interest in housing, for engaging with the district and district staff, and we hope to work with them in the future. I've had the pleasure of attending a number of areas around the district that cropped up on my radar, and so I was able to familiarize myself with the district and did a number of site tours. And last but not least, I was invited to speak to the Trail of the Okanogans AGM in Summerland, in Penticton. Guy's from Kelowna, he doesn't know the South Okanagan. And on Saturday, and that was rounded up my week, so thank you.
Thank you. Okay, on to item 9.1. And this is just a housekeeping item, a resolution that is brought forward from the closed session, and it names the applicants that have been selected for the Parks and Recreation Advisory Committee for a 2-year term. Could I have somebody, oh, sorry, we don't need to do that. 'Cause that's a resolution that's already been made and has come out of closed. Our Councillor Aaron Traynor is our council liaison, and Councillor Doug Holmes is the alternate on that, and Dave Stathers has been appointed as the representative from School District 67. So on to item 10. Pardon me. Pardon me?
Okay, so, sorry to just
Oh, sorry.
slip these in here. The meeting only happened this afternoon, but you had a question?
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I just before we move on to the next one, I just wanted to, on the Rec Advisory Committee, I just wanted to recognize and thank Sandy Ma, who was the previous chair for many, many, many years on the Rec Commission, and the service that she gave to the community was incredible. And so that the fact that somebody was on that committee for so long and really contributed to the community. So I just wanted to, for the record, recognize her contribution.
Right, thank you, Councillor Holmes. And you?
Yeah, just a couple of items added on to number 9.1 here. Two things that came up in Committee of the Whole that were just recommendations from Committee of the Whole that Council may wish to turn into resolutions. The first one being that the Arts and Cultural Center building project be reaffirmed as a council priority, and that staff resources continue to be allocated to the completion of a renovation project encompassing both the Arts and Cultural Center and the museum.
Thank you. Councillor Carlson?
I'll move that motion.
And seconder, Councillor Barkwell. Any further discussion on this motion? All right, all those in favor? None opposed. And there's a
And
second
the
one?
second one this is regarding water metering, the domestic second service that has been an outstanding issue for a while. This recommendation from Committee of the Whole today is that the process proposed in the domestic second services report dated June 17th, 2019, which is available in the Committee of the Whole agenda, to address unmetered domestic second services be supported and that staff be directed to begin the public engagement component of this process in 2019.
Councillor Patton and Councillor Barquil, first and second. Any further discussion on this? Okay, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Thank you. Again, if you'd like to refer to the report that's mentioned there, it is on our website under the agenda for today for the Committee of the Whole. Is that it then? Thank you. On to item 10, bylaws. 10.1, Development Approval Procedures Bylaw Number 2019-003. Fees and Charges Amendment Bylaw Number 2019-004. And OCP Amendment, that's the delegation portion of it, Bylaw 2019-005.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. As you know, this has been an ongoing conversation that we started back in March, and so this is the second time that Council has seen these bylaws, but I think it's appropriate at this point now that the bylaws be given formal reading, and the reason I asked bylaws to be given formal reading is so that we can start the formal consultation. So if we want to follow a procedure that is similar to what we're going to require applicants to follow, we need to demonstrate that. So we need to give readings to the bylaws to give them formal standing, and then by all means we will be referring those out. While only the official community plan bylaw requires a formal public hearing, we do fully recognize that comments will come as part of that discussion with respect to both the development approval and fees and charges bylaws. I'm going to just remind you from the last time we had a discussion. I'm just going to show you some of the slides that you've seen before to remind you how these bylaws fit into that previous discussion. So you may recall that land use planning and management activities include development applications responsive to the official community plan, which of course contains the community vision. The land use plans then follow into development regulations. You will recall that we talked about the policy and regulations framework. This is how we see that progressing, and you will remember the official community plan is at the top, and the regulatory bylaws and procedures are at the bottom. So the process that we're going through largely at the moment is to update and bring current our development approval procedures bylaw with the other development approval procedure bylaws in our neighboring municipalities, which were all used as a template for this bylaw. So there is some tried and true information from all of the surrounding municipalities that we've leveraged into this new bylaw. It's also important to note that the official community plan amendment that is proposed is essentially removing all of the procedure-related issues from that bylaw, from that policy document, and then allocates them to the regulatory bylaw. So you'll recall that we looked at the process when we create the plan. Staff recommends at certain intervals, sometimes at various intervals, depending upon what kind of changes occur in the community, revisions to that plan, and this is one of those occasions. So again, we're focusing on the standards and procedures. We're talking about detailed instructions. It's not that the process is changing all that much, it's that we are laying out in full detail what tasks and actions will occur and what our operating policies and procedures are so that we have better communication with the community, and that goes for both our residents and the development community. So at this point, once we're into the process of getting council approval, we want to refer it to the various departments and external agencies. So this is where the public consultation process begins, and this is what we hope to begin once we have formal readings of the bylaw. That concludes my comments.
Thank you very much. Questions of Corey? Councillor Patton?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. First of all, I'd like to thank staff for taking all the time preparing this document. Though, to be honest, I'd rather see it go through public consultation prior to giving it first and second reading. I think that with the development approval procedures, it really enhances bureaucratic process. I also think that there's additional red tape within this document that affects our building and our development community. It's a great to look at this document from 50,000 feet and look at this document, but I believe right now, with boots on the ground, I think it's going to not help our building community, and I'd really, really like to see public input put into this and have changes done within this document before it does come back to us for first and second reading. Thank you.
If I could just say one thing before Councillor Holmes. In order for us to get it out into the community, it has to cross our table, so we have to have at least first reading in order for us to take it out for consultation.
Okay.
Okay? Councillor Holmes.
Would you be able to explain why that is? How is it different than, say, what the second service is that we just passed this afternoon, where we're going that out to consultation before we pass any readings, any bylaws or anything? I don't understand why we need to pass first reading.
Well, that's my understanding of the process. I stand corrected if that's the case. CEO?
Certainly, Your Worship, the notion of taking it to first reading means you've now taken the document. Council can then direct the type of advice you want, whether it's simply asking people for input, or you could take the additional step of asking staff to create a committee made up of representatives of the community. So certainly taking the first reading, I think, is an important way to at least get it on the table and have now council direct how you want that. I'm thinking that certainly with the OCP amendment, which is different than the rest of it, most of it is procedural. The OCP is almost a procedural amendment to the OCP. It's not a substantive, but the OCP would require, again, to start having first and second reading and then directing, something to public input. So my advice would be to give it first reading. Doesn't mean you're endorsing it. What it means is you're putting it on the table and you can direct it out, and then council could certainly direct staff to have a comprehensive development. And certainly I know some of the concerns in this particular case, what I'm understanding certainly council to be asking for is, again, meeting with the industry specific, and I think that would be best done in the form of some kind of committee whereby staff and the industry reps are sitting at a table and those issues could be brought forward and actually discussed, and then those minutes of those meetings could ultimately be forwarded to council. You may end up with a minority report at the end of that process, or you may in fact have a collaborative recommendation. And so again, I would recommend that at least first reading be given. Nothing that would, but something like third reading implies approval in principle, but I don't believe that the first reading in any way, shape implies that. It's just a meeting of getting it on the table. The alternative is not to give it first reading, which to me would then be a rejection of the information. But that was how I would see it. I'm not sure if there's any procedural difference. I'll ask that.
No, from a more general concept, these bylaws that are being proposed are under the Local Government Act, which is far more formalized process than, say, services such as the water service, which is under Community Charter, which has a little bit more flexibility in it, as we kind of heard from the RDOS earlier today. So that more traditionally, this would be the way of moving something like this forward that falls under the Local Government Act. as well technically the water service as a comparison. The bylaw changes can't actually occur until some of the work is done, whereas this is affecting procedures that will then affect work that will be done in the community.
Does that clarify somewhat?
You may have follow up.
Councillor Holmes? Yes.
So when this first came to us back in March, I think we had so many questions on the bylaw that we decided at the time that we needed to workshop this a bit more. And I was expecting that to be the next step, that we would then be workshopping it. And kind of the way I see it is if we could workshop it, with very much how we did the climate action plan, where we had stakeholders in the room with councillors and going through the bylaw to create a workable draft bylaw that could then come to council, and then we start the public consultation process after that. To me, that seems like the most workable process. Now, I don't know the legislation, if the Local Government Act would allow that or not, but I think that's, the community would certainly, I think, welcome a process more like that.
Your worship, if the concern is that, the work to date is missing the mark, and that, my concern with the workshop model is these are very, complex procedures that could take an awful lot of work to have council and the community in a broad workshop. So I think, and not knowing the past, not knowing what council has seen already, I think there are two approaches you could take. Is one, to have a more definitive workshop with council, something at a committee of the whole, where you break it down into its component pieces, explain what those pieces are. But I also recommend that, council form then a working group of representatives of industry and staff to actually meet and really go through the nitty-gritty, because I'm not sure of all of council. Obviously, some members of council are more than qualified to go through the technical side, but certainly not everyone, I think, would necessarily have the patience to go through some of this issue, which people in the field and that do this on a daily basis may raise those technical concerns. And we're actually dealing with two pretty, this and the other, very detailed bylaws. So again, my recommendation is give it first reading, refer it out with a specific. If council does not feel that they can in fact give it that first reading, then I would suggest the first step is to recommend a more detailed workshop, again, not knowing what you have seen. And then the item could come back and again, presumably would still ask for some kind of direction. First reading provides the ability for council to give that direction. You could provide it as just a motion, but I think it's a little more formal. So there are a number of options that you could take, and your worship, I'll now sit back and listen to council and what their concerns are, because that may shape the next step.
Councillor Carlson. I have a question with regards to what current applicants or people who might be putting in applications as this process is going on over here, if first reading is given, and this is the proposal that's currently on the table, does that mean that anyone who's bringing forward an application, say tomorrow, would be expected to try and meet these? Are they going to be looking at what might be in place by the time their application is approved, or are we looking at what currently is in place for those folks? I don't want to set any double standards by putting this on the floor and then perhaps tearing it apart.
What I may do is direct that, because there may be a difference between each of these two areas. Certainly the development process one, we would have much more flexibility to determine what applies and when, but I'm not sure under the building if once, so I'll refer this to Corey for detail.
Thank you. Madam Mayor, the Development Approval Procedures Bylaw is functionally just putting the existing procedures in black and white in a more fulsome way. The official community plan change is a delegation of power to the Director of Development Services to streamline the development permit process in order to facilitate faster processing in recognition of that professional reliance model. You will recall that we've now adopted terms of reference for the various types of professional reports, and so that provides the foundation on which to then build with that delegation. So they're very technical standards that professionals have to meet, and it's not so much a political question often as a question of whether the standards have been met with respect to the official community plan guidelines. The building bylaw is a second item that I won't address, but until we get to that point. But again, very technical. So these are these foundational pieces that we've been talking about. And I certainly, as staff, would be very reluctant to undertake any type of consultation without at least first reading from council with respect to this. And with respect to the concept of workshopping, we had staff discuss that on May 27th, when we presented that additional information. We felt that that had fulfilled that requirement for that additional discussion. So it certainly just appeared to be the next sensible step in the process. Many of the details that are included in the Development Approval Procedures Bylaw come directly from Local Government Act requirements. There's not a lot of discretionary stuff there. It's mostly just about spelling it out so that everyone's on the same page.
Councillor Carlson?
So I think that answer brings up the concerns that have already been raised. So if we're talking about putting existing procedures into a procedure bylaw, but what I've heard so far from Councillor Patton as well as from industry members is that some of the procedures and the things that we're talking about are more stringent here than they necessarily would be in other communities. And I'm not the professional, so I don't know if that's the case, and I don't know how it all works, but I would be concerned that we don't want to overdo it, but we also want to make sure that we're putting the proper regulation in place. And so I don't know if it's best to put a first reading forward or if it's best to talk about it before we do that, but I do know that we need to make sure that the people who this will impact on a daily basis have the right amount of input.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yes, Councillor, I think, what we're dealing with a number of things, and there's some overlap. As we just heard, some of the changes are taking the procedures that are out of date and bringing in regulations that actually exist so that they're in line. And I would argue that, it happens every day. Provincial regulations change, and you have to make sure that you're meeting those. So those are ones I would say, whether you like them or not, may not be debatable, because in fact they may be handed to you now to put in place. There's a second group, and the difference between, say, best standards from around a region. I think it's important that we itemize those and maybe flag those, so that in fact council and the industry know, okay, this came from here, and this is why we took it. I think there could be a concern, not saying there is a concern, there could be a concern that we're cherry picking different standards, and so I think maybe by itemizing that. The OCP is something that I support in that I don't believe you put procedures in a policy document. So that document was a mixture of policy and very stringent procedures, and so that's just disentangling. Okay, so there should be nothing particularly new there, but rather taking some of those procedures and putting them appropriately in a procedure bylaw rather than having them in an OCP. The fact that councils, enough members of council are showing concern, at this point, I again would suggest whether or not council chooses to give it first reading is up to council. But I do believe that there's a important need for us to take the information that we have, and also, once again, meet with representatives that have voiced concern. It's not good enough for staff to hear, well, this is more stringent than everybody else. I'd like to actually see the procedure, see the item, and point out the ones that are, because I think that's fair. So if item 1X is the one that is more stringent, let's flag it. And I think that's the work that it could do, because once it's flagged, now we can determine whether or not that's an appropriate one, and council will be able to do it. So I think all the information's there, but I think it is pretty omnibus, and obviously some people have some concerns. And so however we get it to an advisory committee or committee that staff can work with, which I believe was the intent all along, it was just a matter of timing of when we did it, then I think that's a logical next step. If nothing else, but to disentangle, and council will know which of the pieces are given and which of the pieces are modernizing and which pieces are an enhancement. And maybe the enhancements are totally justified, but you should be able to know which is which, and that might be helpful.
Councillor Patton.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. If Mr. Matuzzi in his expertise feels that for us to move forward with this and give it first reading, I would be willing to do that. I would say, though, that there are some, as Mr. Matuzzi alluded to, there's some issues within this document that are not located in current policy and are not located in the British Columbia Building Code, which is the Architects Act. I would like to, if I may, propose that if we do go for first reading, that staff does not indicate to the building community and reference the Architects Act when we have no authority to do so. The other thing that I would ask is that the Chamber of Commerce, since business licenses within Summerland, all business licenses go through the Chamber of Commerce, and they'll have a database of all the builders and developers. I would like the Chamber of Commerce and the Canadian Home Builders South Okanagan to be involved in this, because it directly affects the development and building community, if I may.
Thank you, Councillor Patton. Councillor Barfoot.
The only thing I know for sure here is that reviewing these documents, because I will confuse the issue and talk a bit about 10.2 as well, which is, well, monumental, is that it's going to take a lot of meetings to really go through it properly, and it's going to take real consultation with the industry, whether we give it first reading and then do that, or whether we do that first. I haven't heard any, that's 6 of one, half a dozen of another. But I guess our CAO has outlined, I guess in broad terms, what consultation could look like. I just know that we should not be thinking that it can be done in one meeting, that it's certainly way too much to consider at a forum like this. And if we have a subcommittee of council that meets with the industry representatives, it's probably the most efficient way. And then that taken back to a committee of the whole, and that committee kind of explains their process and their rationale for the changes they made, that would be good. Does that sound like a plan?
CAO.
Your
I
Worship.
have to formulate my ideas.
Yeah,
here.
sorry, Your Worship. Maybe an approach that we can recommend to move this forward, but move it forward in a way that everyone's comfortable, is to, at this point, I would recommend then council table the item, and that way no one has to feel put upon. Bring it back, once again, for consideration, with the recommendation of how we will do consultation. Some kind of terms of reference so that staff can work with them and on those timings, and that way, let us try to come up with, rather than designing it on the fly as we speak, come back with a recommendation for terms of reference on how we get that input in a way that's productive, and then allow us to move forward in that way.
Councillor Traynor.
You just said table, do you still want us to give it first reading? Or would we table the whole thing and then bring it back for first reading?
Your worship, I just want to move it forward. If
Okay.
council isn't comfortable, I would recommend giving a first reading. But if council isn't comfortable giving a first reading, then really the point is to get it, staff the ability to go and create the advisory body terms of reference on how to move this forward with input that everyone is comfortable with, including staff, in terms of being able to move this forward. So either way.
Councillor Carlson?
I would move to table 10.1 to another meeting.
So all of the resolutions that are shown there? Okay. And Councillor Holmes, are you seconding that, or did you have a question?
No, I'll second it. But I'd like to speak to it too.
Okay, yes.
No, I'm comfortable with that approach. I think it's important for us, for council to understand how the consultation is going to pan out. And I'm not personally bothered if council is involved in a working group or a committee or anything like that. I think we can entrust staff and the industry to work together. And just to reiterate what Councillor Patton was saying, at the last chamber meeting, they specifically kind of requested that that we use them more for these kind of this kind of work. We're working with the business community, that they're available there for to be served, to serve in that way. So I would certainly encourage that we work through the chamber.
Speaking of the chamber, us utilizing them, is there anyone from the chamber present in the gallery this evening? Yeah, alrighty. Okay, so we have a motion on the table. Did you want to speak to that as well? Okay, Councillor Barkwell?
I liked the CAO's suggestion that staff make a recommendation on what sort of, or a number of recommendations from which we can choose from, on what the consultation process will look like. I just wondered if that should be a separate motion, or does it need to be a motion at all, or should we add it to the current motion?
Again, I'm not sure what your normal procedure, but certainly is a separate motion and/or an addition that directs staff to come up with the terms of reference for the manner in which they'll work with industry representatives to review and make recommendations back to council.
After we've voted on this motion, then I'll make that one.
Okay, that sounds like a good plan. So right now, we are deferring this this decision, the first reading even, to another meeting, a future meeting. That's what's on the table now. Is there any further discussion on that motion? Okay, I'll call the question. All in favor? Okay, none opposed. Councillor Barkwell?
So I'd like to move that staff be directed to prepare a report for our next council meeting, or as soon as possible thereafter, on recommended methods of consultation for the changes to, or the changes proposed in bylaws 10, or agenda items 10.1 and 10.2.
Okay. Seconder? Councillor Carlson? Any further discussion? Councillor Patton?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think it's great what Councillor Breckwell has said. I think that the next meeting is far too close. I think this is going to take some time, and I think 2 weeks is going to be heavy pressures to try and come up with the terms of reference in which we're looking for. So if Councillor Barkwell wouldn't mind to extend that time limit just a little bit.
Yeah, I think he said next meeting or as soon as possible, or
Thereafter.
something
Whatever,
thereafter.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. So you're good with that? All right. Any further discussion? I'll call the question. All in favor? And none opposed. Thank you. Thank you, Corey. On to business items 11, 11.1.
Madam Mayor,
Oh,
excuse
pardon
me?
me?
2 separate.
10.2.
I thought this included that.
We got to table.
Oh, that's right, we have to table this one as well, thank you. So does someone want to bring that forward?
Madam Mayor, if I might interject for just a moment, please. We have Peter Robinson from the Community Energy Association who is here to complement my presentation of the bylaw to council tonight. It would be very helpful if he could continue with his presentation at the very least, so he's not required to come back on another evening.
Okay, thank you, Corey, I was unaware of that.
Thank you.
So did you want to start by introducing 10.2, and then we'll hear from
Certainly,
Mr. Robinson?
if you'd like. I was simply going to suggest again, we're just simply asking for first reading because I always bring this to council to be placed in council's attention before I go out to industry in any way, shape, or form. So reminding you that we looked at this slide at previous meeting in terms of building it right, and this is the portion of the process that we're addressing with the new building bylaw. The building bylaw has been essentially put together based on the City of Penticton building bylaw with complementary information from the Municipal Insurance Association's core bylaw. Very few changes there. And then looking at our existing building bylaw that addressed heritage buildings, which neither of those other two bylaws did, so we incorporated that piece as well. The key part of this, I think if we're going to table it, I won't give you a lot of explanation on the bylaw itself, but I will introduce Peter Robinson, who has a few slides to share with you on the BC Energy Step Code.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Great, so good evening. Hi. So yes, I understand the BC Energy Step Code will be is part of the proposed changes to the building bylaw. So I'm with the Community Energy Association, which is a charitable association with the mandate to help communities in Canada with energy sustainability and climate action. So just speak for a few minutes on this. And I understand this isn't the first time that this topic's been presented to council. So a little bit of the provincial policy context. In December 2018, the Clean BC plan came out, and so part of that plan, so there are a lot of things in that plan, part of it is that by 2032 new buildings will be approximately up to 80% more energy efficient than a home built today. And so it'll go through a number of steps in order to get to that roughly 50 to 80% more efficient by 2032. And so starting in about 2022, all new buildings will be about 20% more efficient. In other words, we built about step 3 on what's on this chart here. About 2027, they should be hitting step 4, in other words, about 40% more efficient. And then 2032, they'll be what they call net zero energy ready, or about 50 to 80% more energy efficient than today. Local governments, if they wish to, can choose to accelerate this process somewhat within certain constraints, which are set by the province. They can't accelerate things too much. If they wish to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, more so within their communities, and reduce energy consumed as well within their communities. And it is a performance-based approach, so there aren't prescriptive requirements. It's done through energy modeling and air tightness testing. So there's a lot of flexibility in terms of how to meet the various metrics for the different steps. So a lot of communities in BC so far have been adopting this. This is a chart that we have from BC Hydro. And so communities that collectively issue about 70% of building permits to date have referenced the BC Energy Step Code and bylaws so far. So it started slowly, as you can see, the green chart there, the green numbers show how many local governments have actually started to reference this in their building bylaws. So it started slowly, it's about 15% so far. It's a lot of the big communities, of course. So for example, the whole North Shore in Greater Vancouver, and they equate to about 70% share at the moment of all BC residential construction. And within the Okanagan, there's been a number of communities that have been looking at this, or that have also adopted it as well. So Penticton was the first community to adopt it. So step 1 in March 15, 2019 was put in place. Step 3 will be effective March 15th, 2020. This has been adopted by council. In fact, all three of the green ones at the top there, Penticton, Lake Country and Kelowna, have been adopted by council. Lake Country, as you can see, is also step 1 has already been in place as well now. And from April the 1st, 2019, step 3 from October the 1st, 2020. Kelowna, step 1 will be effective December the 1st, 2019, and step 3, June the 1st, 2021. As you can see, all of these communities have provided a gap in which builders can sort of get used to working with an energy advisor in terms of doing energy modeling and air tightness testing. And then, so step 1 is more or less the same as the BC Building Code right now, but just using these tools. Step 3 is about 20% more efficient. Summerland's proposed pathway forwards within the current proposed amendments to the building bylaw is step 1, January the 1st, 2020, and then step 3, January the 1st, 2021. So considerably behind, for example, Penticton, as you can see there. Communities that are currently consulting are Vernon, Peachland, and West Kelowna, and we will see what they choose to do. And that's all I have.
Thank you. Councillor Barkwell.
How much do these energy improvements add to the cost of a house?
So there's the BC Energy Step Code Council commissioned an extensive report on this metric study. And there's been, I don't have the numbers exactly to hand, but there's a lot of debate within industry as to that study, and a lot of debate among different builders about how much it costs as well. So I know some people, for example, in Kelowna who've built carriage homes or are building carriage homes that are hitting step 3 or step 4 or better, and they're talking about construction costs for these homes, which are actually kind of below what's industry standard for a regular home. And yet, you speak to some other people and, they talk about completely, different costs. There's a lot of discussion in industry about how much it adds. But, we could talk, for example, there is a major developer, a major builder in Penticton, who builds all of his homes, or a large number of his homes, to step 3 already. There's also incentives available, for example, from Fortis BC, for homes whether they connect to natural gas or electric heating, that in order to help to take care of that incremental cost. So the precise answer is I don't have those numbers exactly to hand. I can always obtain those numbers and circulate them to council for the metric study, or circulate them through appropriate channels.
I can see that.
Councillor Barkwell, please use your microphone.
Sorry. Yeah, I can see that it might depend on who you ask. But if a builder is already building to those standards, that's a good indicator that it's feasible.
Through your worship to council, I could also ask, for example, Ken Kunka, for example, he's the chief building official in Penticton, who led the development of this in Penticton. He worked with local builders there on this, and he might have some good input as well, so I could ask him.
Thank you. Any other questions of our speaker? Or of Corey? All right. So, who would like to bring forward I guess it would be a revised motion, or to bring forward this to be read a first time so we get it on the table? Councillor Barkwell.
I'll bring the motion forward, and then, actually, it can be tabled either way, right? Before it's introduced, or before it's, or once it's been first introduced and seconded.
You can defer it to another meeting
I'll
before
move
it's...
that we table
yes.
10.2 to another meeting.
Defer, okay. It's seconded by Councillor Carlson? Correct? Okay. Any further discussion on this? Councillor Traynor.
Just checking, the previous resolution that we brought forward includes public consultation for this one as well, 10.2?
Yes, it does.
Okay, good.
Yes. Should they be separated, or does it matter?
It's fine.
Okay. Okay, if there's no further discussion, I'll call the question. All those in favor? And none are opposed. So that's carried. Okay, now on to business items 11.1, development variance permit, DVP 19-010 for 18420 Garnet Valley Road. I will ask our I'll ask our planner, Kevin, to introduce this. There is opportunity to comment from the public, but we need to hear from our planner first, and then you'll be given that opportunity. Thank you.
Your Worship. The purpose of DVP 19-010 is to address the placement of farm buildings within the minimum required setbacks, as well as a dwelling unit for a farm manager. The farm operation is being conducted on a 1.65 hectare parcel of land at 18420 Garnet Valley Road, zoned A2 and within the agricultural land reserve, and enjoys farm status. The farm operation consists of multiple structures that together are considered a mushroom growing facility, as described in the zoning bylaw. Traditional mushroom growing facilities do admittedly produce significant odor due to the manure-based substrate being the growing medium where spores establish. This facility uses a wood-based substrate. Following her site visit, the Ministry of Agriculture agrologist consulted the ministry's mushroom specialist who reviewed the material collected on site and did not believe that this site has a source for odor generation. Staff have labeled the structures of the facility according to their function. This is an area of the farm where wood chips are deposited in order to dry. The chips are placed on a non-permanent surface so as not to reduce the agricultural viability of the land into the future. These are the buildings that are primarily used to store the wood substrate until they are ready to be transported to the greenhouses to be allowed to grow. These bags of substrate have been spawned, but the mushrooms do not fruit at this stage. There are two structures being used for this purpose. The interior of both structures are similar to the images on the screen. The lower left photo shows an air filtration system. This unit removes particulate, including spores that the farmer does not wish to cultivate. As there are spores everywhere, the mixing of the spawn and the substrate must be done in a clean air environment. These bags are then placed in storage, which takes up a significant majority of the rest of the structure. Structure B has been set up with sterilizers. These are units which are pressurized to 1 psi with steam intended to heat the wood chip substrate to 100 degrees Celsius in order to sterilize it and make it safe for organic food production. Gas inspections are under the authority of Technical Safety BC, and these units were also observed by WorkSafe BC, who are satisfied with the safety of the units. Structure B was at one point screened from adjacent parcels. However, this landscape barrier has since been removed. Structure C are the growing houses. They are covered hooped structures with multiple shelving units in them, where the spawn substrate bags from building A are placed. These bags are sliced, which allow the mushrooms to fruit on the exterior of the bag. Staff entered these structures with WorkSafe BC and the Ministry of Agriculture agrologist, neither of which raised any concerns over exposure to particulate matter. Once the substrate is spent, it is taken to the compost pile at the eastern portion of the property, past where the wood chips are dried. The material is safe to handle with bare hands and does not produce any detectable odor. Finally, a space above an existing building was converted at some point in the past without permit into a dwelling unit. The unit is reported to be under 600 square feet, and it is confirmed to be used by the farmer. The variance request to the side yard setback is being recommended to be supported by staff. In reviewing the Minister's Guide for Bylaw Development, the setbacks as currently prescribed in the zoning bylaw are detrimental to the protection of agricultural viability. For example, the Minister's Guide recommends a maximum setback of 7.5 meters for a traditional mushroom growing barn, whereas the Summerland bylaw requires a minimum setback of 30 meters. On many smaller agricultural lots, this would effectively require a variance for any farm structure. The types of structures requiring a 30-meter setback are greenhouses, wineries, cideries, brewing and distilling structures, buildings and structures housing animals, livestock or poultry, livestock feeding stations, mushroom growing facilities, and all other structures. Staff are committing to reviewing the provisions of the agricultural zones to propose new regulations that better support the objectives of protecting farmland and encouraging agricultural innovation as described in the official community plan. In the last 3 years, 5 not insignificant variances have been granted to reduce setbacks in agricultural zones, most notably for the Mountain View Growers greenhouse operation. It is apparent that the 30-meter setback is needlessly restrictive, and especially in areas where all parcels are designated for agricultural use by municipal and provincial governments. Further, the dwelling unit has been confirmed to be dwelling for the farm worker, in this case the owner of What the Fungus and the manager of the farm. It is unfortunate when instances occur that lead to an after-the-fact request for permit. However, staff must make recommendations based on the merit of the proposal. As this lot is zoned for agriculture, has followed good agricultural practices, has been inspected by WorkSafe BC, the Ministry of Agriculture, which stated that this operation cannot be compared to a traditional, conventional mushroom barn due to the scale, source of inputs, and management practices utilized at What the Fungus, and the Agricultural Land Commission, who determined that the file will be closed as there appears to be no ALC contraventions. Staff recommends that Development Variance Permit 19-010 be approved. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kevin. Now is the time for the public to comment on this, beginning with the proponent, if you'd like to speak first. I would like to say, before you begin speaking, Mr. Clausen, that discussion at the podium or around the table is restricted to this development variance application.
My name is Thor Clausen. I'm the owner of the property at 18420 Garnet Valley Road, and a shareholder, but supposedly a silent partner in the business. What the Fungus. As it was stated, it's a modern, unique way to grow food and using existing air lands that are not conducive to traditional in situ growing methods. The soils on our property couldn't grow a potato if you tried. No animal manures products are used in any part of the production, and therefore no odors. The growing medium is wood chips reclaimed from largely invasive species in our communities, such as tree of heaven and Siberian elm. The small footprint uses available land wisely. In fact, the commissioner of the Agricultural Land Commission officer has invited the Minister of Agriculture to come out and view our property in July of this year. We're clean, we use absolutely zero chemicals, and we're completely sustainable. We're low water use. Our mushrooms flush successfully in small batches only after the bags are placed in greenhouses, and a minimum amount of water is used for misting. The layout of the buildings and greenhouses to enhance ergonomics and reduce steps to driving and reduce our carbon footprint. We've also been approved for a $6,000 grant, which commences tomorrow, for an energy use study of our farm to see if we can further reduce our environmental footprint. You can see the Minister of Agriculture's report on site, the WorkSafe BC report for classifications of the building. We also went ahead in 2017 with an environmental farm plan. We did hire an environmental farm planner to work with us. Those documents can be made available as well, and we have done everything that he's asked, which was very little, as we've moved forward with a green footprint from day one. Just my apologies to staff and council that this had to come before you. It was a misunderstanding largely on my part. I went into the town to apply for a development variance permit and a building permit before we constructed any greenhouses in March of 2014. At that time, I went over the structures that we were building, how we were building them, the concrete footprints, where we were placing them on the property with the previous planner, and we went over it at it in depth. And I was instructed that no variance permits or building permits were required for the structures that we were building at that time. I'm referring to the small greenhouses. I tried to get a hold of the past planner to verify this, and I could not get a hold of him. However, in Ms. Besler's reiterates this sentiment in her letter of complaint to the DOS. In 2014, I quote, "In 2014, I contacted the bylaw officer before the first greenhouse slabs report and after the slabs report with pictures. He refused to come look, so I went to the district 3 times and talked to 2 people. I showed pictures to the Director of Development Services, and he told me that this was allowed." That's coming directly from my neighbor. The farm management suite was originally constructed for office space for us. It was turned into a suite, not an official suite because it didn't have a stove in it to begin with. When my daughter moved up into the unit, it's slightly under 500 square feet, and since 2014 it's been the living quarters for my partner and his wife, Brian Cowell. Nothing was built specifically to house them or is in contradiction of the existing bylaws. When we built the smaller structures, we consulted our environmental farm planner, a junior partner, my brother-in-law, who is also an agrologist and does environmental farm plans. We went over in detail the Agricultural Land Commission Act. We went over in detail the Farm Management Practices Act. We consulted many people in all industries, and we came up with the definitions of our buildings, which you can see both workers' compensation, the Minister of Agriculture, Agricultural Land Commission, as well as our farm planner has designated as wood storage buildings, not mushroom barns. The definition, according to the Agricultural Land Commission, setbacks are 4.5 meters, which is what we have maintained. So we did not do this to violate anybody or surpass or usurp any laws or rules. We did our due diligence. We didn't realize on ag land that we needed to come in for a variance permit when we went through the due diligence that we did and consulted the industry professionals that we have consulted. It has been in our plan from the beginning, the map, the layout of our buildings, how we were going to do it and proceed. That went through with our planning book from our Agricultural Land Commission, and that was all forward. Everything that we've ever done and what all we've done can be viewed on our YouTube channel, where we have 30,000 followers. You can also view some of our programs on the Urban Farmers YouTube channel, where he has 300,000 followers. We have a couple other minor things that we do. There was a statement made about use for camping facilities. We bring students into Summerland from all over the world. Last week we had somebody from Perth, Australia and New York. The week before was from Romania and Vermont. We've had students as far away as South Africa, Madagascar, France, Germany, Mexico, New Zealand, Australia, and they all come to our little community because of our little mushroom farm that is unique to the world, and that's why they come here. Moving or having to change our farm, if this variance is not granted, would cause undue hardship. So far, as you can see by his photographs, there used to be a hedge between the 2 properties that is now non-existent. It was removed after our survey pegs were put in by our surveyor that we paid for, by our neighbors. The hedge is one of the things that would have been paid for by the Environmental Farm Planning Commission to alleviate odors and dust and those kinds of items should they have been existing. But it was removed on my property. Replacement cost of this hedge, I had estimated by a private consultant as $18,500. That's a direct loss to me.
Please keep your comments to this development variance application.
Okay.
Thank you.
A set of bylaws, I'll close out here. A set of bylaws cannot be so restrictive that they appear to predict a changing economy, a changing environment, and changing farm management practices. The process exists to ensure that available farmland is used wisely. We believe that we have done that and we are hopeful the council sees the wisdom in granting WTF the variance permit as requested, based on its own merit and its support of staff. Thank you.
Thank you, Thor.
Hi, Brad Besler, 11815 Prairie Valley Road, Summerland. Before I get to my prepared remarks, I reviewed all the letters of support for this variance permit. None of them mention the setback violations. They all mention how they like their mushrooms. No one is saying don't grow mushrooms. We're saying respect the 30-meter setbacks for mushroom growing facilities. The bylaws have been in place before most of these structures were built. My mom's owned this property for 30 years. She deserves to have her property rights protected and respected. She deserves that. And also, in the email that Brian Callow has sent to the co-owner of What the Fungus, requesting letters of support, it says, "We are adding on another expansion. As such, we have been directed to apply for a variance permit from the District of Summerland." This is not to be about an expansion. This is about the 10 existing structures that have been built, all of them in violation of the setbacks. The two biggest structures are violating the setbacks by 26 meters. So that was manipulating by them for these letters of support, and I hope council notes that. What the Fungus has built a commercial mushroom operation right in my family's setbacks without any permits. The district's own report classifies all 10 structures as mushroom growing facilities, and every single structure violates the 30-meter minimum setbacks for mushroom growing facilities. The property owner, Thor Clausen, has been willfully negligent in his conduct. For the applicant rationale, Thor says the buildings are used for wood storage and only need 4.5-meter setbacks. It is clear from the videos that were submitted that they are labs used for incubation and production, not wood storage. The two largest structures violate the minimum setbacks by 26 meters. The minimum interior side setbacks for greenhouses is also 30 meters. They erected the closest greenhouses in March 2019. All structures, greenhouses and buildings can easily be disassembled and moved to comply with the setbacks. The smell from the sterilization tanks in Building B is absolutely disgusting. Thor was given advance notice before any inspector was going to come and was able to manipulate the smell. Thor said on Global News it doesn't smell, and that is beyond false. The smell from Building B, when all 7 sterilization tanks are steaming, smells like rotten puke, and I get mad every time I smell it because that structure is only 4 meters from the property line, not the required 30 meters like the bylaw clearly states.
Brad, I will remind you as well, please speak to the development variance permit that's before us. So that's regarding the setbacks.
I'm talking about Building B, which is in violation of the...
Okay, but you were talking about disgusting odor. That has nothing to do with the application that's before us.
Well, Thor mentioned that there's no odor, and I'm just informing everyone that they were given advance notice before any inspector or
Thank you. Please carry on,
Okay.
but let's talk to what's before the council tonight,
Okay.
please. Thank you.
For the environmental farm plan document that was submitted, Pete Spencer states, "The environmental farm plan program is not set up to assist agricultural operations to conform with local government zoning for property line setbacks." So it is irrelevant to the property line setbacks. The District of Summerland zoning bylaws are what matter. If anyone can build a mushroom growing facility anywhere on their property, why is there a bylaw that states a 30-meter minimum interior side setback must be followed? The ALC inspection report also has some inaccurate information. Officer Birchmore states that What the Fungus has been operating for 5 years without any complaints. In 2014, before the first greenhouse slab was poured, my mom went into the District of Summerland to see if they needed permits. My mom has been concerned about this since 2014 and has been brushed off and bullied by staff at the District of Summerland for voicing these concerns. My family intends to build a house closer to the side of the property bordering 18420 Garnet Valley Road. By violating the minimum setbacks by 26 meters without any permits, they are negatively impacting our development options. If they would have applied for the permits originally, they would have been advised of the proper setbacks. The precedent this will set if any structure is allowed to remain in place will only encourage more people to construct whatever they want without any permits. The bylaws regarding minimum setbacks for mushroom growing facilities could not be clearer, and everyone in Summerland is supposed to follow the same bylaws and be treated equally. So, in closing, the rules and bylaws are in place for a reason. Please respect my mom's property and enforce them. My entire family is strongly opposed to this development variance permit being granted. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would care to comment on the development variance permit?
You have the opportunity to address some of the comments.
I'd like to hear from other people that have not had the chance to speak first.
My name is Faith Callow. I am the farmer manager's wife. We live on 18420 Garnet Valley Road. There is nothing like what the fungus. According to government of British Columbia, the second largest mushroom growing facilities and mushroom crops are mainly button growing mushrooms. We are a few of specialty mushroom growing facilities in British Columbia, and which sets us differently from the rest of it. And I believe these bylaws were taken from a Vancouver bylaw about mushroom facilities. It was also, I'm not really prepared, I apologize, but for the regulations for these buildings, local, provincial, federal legislations are recommended, municipal governing body are recommended to take a look at these and consider the uniqueness of specialty growing mushrooms compared to industrial, commercialized, multi-million-dollar companies. So I would like council to consider the uniqueness of this farm. Thank you.
Thank you. When a development variance permit comes before us, it's looked at it on a one-by-one basis, so thank you. Hello.
Hello, Mayor and Council. Vicki Besler, 520 Miller Street. In 2014, I went into bylaw with concerns that Thor Clausen was planning to build in the setbacks, and the bylaw officer refused to come out and have a look. I went into the district building department 3 times with pictures and told this was allowed. That wasn't true. The LC report this month says there was no complaints on this in 5 years. The district staff all knew in 2014, before the first greenhouse slab was poured and the setbacks were being violated. So it seems that Summerland bylaws and building codes are not the same for everyone. The closest greenhouse were erected in March 2019, and Building A was built in 2018 and 19. They can easily take them apart, the labs and greenhouses, and move them out of the setbacks. They have more than enough room on the property. I did read that they're planning on making $500,000, so the cost shouldn't be a problem. If everyone is allowed to build right up to the property line, why are there even zoning bylaws or minimum setbacks? In 2006, I told the bylaw officer that I wanted a second residence like Thor. I was told it wasn't a second residence, it was used for storage. In 2010, I moved back to Garnet Valley and knew that it was a second residence. I talked with bylaw and was told it was a building issue, not bylaw. So I went to the district and they told me if I put up a second residence, I would be fined. They said they would look into my neighbor. This was in 2010. If Thor is allowed to keep his second residence when the property is too small, the building is too tall, and he did it without a permit, then everyone in Summerland should be allowed to do the same.
Vicki, I'll ask you as well, please address the matter before us tonight.
That is.
But building a second house, like you're saying that Mr. Clausen has done, is not part of the setback conversation we're having this evening.
Okay. The zoning bylaws should be applied equally to everyone in Summerland. They are the district's own zoning bylaws, not mine. It should not depend on if you are connected to staff at the district or not. I've owned Garnet Valley for 30 years, and it is being negatively impacted. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, is there anybody else that would like to speak for the first time? Thor, would you like to speak again, or?
The only addition I would have is that the WCB inspections are on the spot and not planned. And the Minister of Agriculture did phone. They asked us to make sure all our steam tanks were operating and that the compost was freshly turned, which we did.
Okay. Thank you. Mr. Besler?
The variance is also seeking a second residence on the property. Thor constructed a second residence without any permits. The building is too high, and the property that it is on is too small by 0.4 hectares. Everyone in Summerland is supposed to be treated equally, so if anyone applies for a similar variance, they should be supported by staff, obviously, otherwise there's a clear double standard going on. And how staff supported this, even though all 10 structures are violating the setbacks, the two largest structures violating by 26 meters. One day when I was in the district planning department waiting to talk to Kevin, there was an elderly couple in front of me, and they were asking about if they were able to build a storage shed on their property, a simple storage shed. It would have violated the setbacks, and Kevin said to them, it is likely that staff will not support this. That was a small storage shed. This is a commercial mushroom operation built without any permits. All 10 structures are inside of our setbacks. The two biggest structures by 26 meters, specifically Building B with the smell, violating by 26 meters. So we just hope that everyone can look at the facts, be fair. My mom has owned this for 30 years. Please respect her property because it's being negatively impacted big time by this. Thank you.
Thank you. Would anyone else care to comment? Council, I just wanted to remind you that there is quite a bit of correspondence that's been received and photocopied and distributed. I think everybody has the copies, so it's about, I don't know, 25 pages or something. So now, Council, do you have questions of staff? Councillor Holmes.
Yes, thank you. Could you tell me through Madam Mayor to staff, is a variance permit tied to a particular use, in particular crop or anything like that on ALR land? Or if once a variance is given, then it can be used to grow anything?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. In this instance, the variance is for structures specifically related to mushroom growing facilities.
To follow up, so they wouldn't be able to grow anything else besides mushrooms?
They're not designed that way.
As we have stated, staff are going to be reviewing the zoning bylaw because of these types of variances. It is not best practice, Madam Mayor, to vary structures for a specific use. However, in this case, and since staff have committed to reviewing the agricultural zones in the zoning bylaw, we have taken the unusual step of zoning these structures for their specific use on this parcel.
Okay. Just to comment on that, if I may, I think that, 30 meters isn't necessarily needlessly restrictive. It all depends on what the use is, what you're growing, and certainly when all the discussion about cannabis, a lot of jurisdictions are instituting a 30-meter setback, and some are even instituting a 50 or 60-meter setback to deal with the smell of cannabis. So it's I think it really is tied to the use, and this is the sort of variance where I look at, if it's done in wood chips, then I'm comfortable with it, but if it's all of a sudden grown in manure, then that changes things a bit, so, whether a variance is tied to use or not I think I don't think we just lump everything together in one setback. Can I ask another question?
Of course.
Yeah. Have we verified whether that, prior to our existing staff, that the applicant was told that no variance permits or building permits were required? Have we been able to verify if that was the case or not?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. There weren't any records indicating one way or another any conversation with the applicant. If I may, could I also address the previous comment? Thank you. That is, through the mayor, that's very true, that different uses are considered to have different setbacks. In the Minister's Guide for Bylaw Development, that is how it is laid out. They have a very long list of setbacks with the proposed maximum setbacks for each particular use, and staff will be reviewing the minister's bylaw rather than just creating a 30-meter interior side yard setback for all farm buildings.
I'd like to ask a question that's related to that one. The 30-meter setback, could you guys just confirm this? The 30-meter setback is for mushroom growing that's done in the traditional fashion or the conventional fashion using manures and that type of growing. Is that correct?
Madam Mayor, I believe the way the bylaw was drafted, that was the intent. As we have heard, this type of mushroom growing facility is unique.
Yes.
And therefore, things that are unique are not often considered in older bylaws.
Okay, thank you. That was my next question, was to make the comparison. Thank you. Councillor Patton.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. If I may, to staff. The tubular greenhouse structures. Those would be compared to the same tubular structure you could buy at Costco or Canadian Tire for putting a vehicle under?
Madam Mayor, that was the metaphor I was hoping to use that the councillor stole from me. Yes.
So sorry. And thank you. Am I correct, or?
Yes, Madam Mayor, that is correct.
Thank you so much. May I ask another? Could you please go to the brown wooden structure that has the concrete blocking?
I believe it's this one.
Sure. So, would you consider those concrete blocks a permanent foundation or temporary structure? Would be my question in regards to this.
Madam Mayor, in the District of Summerland, we currently do not address temporary structures. That's one of those things that will be introduced in the new bylaw. But a structure is a structure here. At the moment, we do not make differentiation, so it does require a permit.
Okay.
If I may? Okay.
Is that where you were going with that question?
Not at all.
Oh, yeah.
Not at all. No, the structure does require a building permit, and there's no doubt about that. When I look at the piers, or the concrete blocks, I don't see a permanent foundation below it. So at end of life, however long that could be, it could be moved or relocated with very little impact to the property. That's the way that I see that. And being as the tent structures, I do have one more question in regards to the concrete pads that the tent structures are sitting on. Are they considered just landscaping? If those tents were to come down Are the concrete pads, would they be considered landscaping?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. They are just paving at grade. They're not foundations with footings.
Thank you so much.
Sorry, could you repeat that they are?
It is just paved concrete at grade. They're not foundation units.
Okay, got it.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Only a building inspector would see these things. Councillor Trainer.
I just have a question about barriers between agricultural properties. Would you be able to remind us what the regulations are again and whose responsibility it is to put up any kind of barrier?
The barriers are generally intended for separation of use between agriculture and urban. They're not so much considered between two agricultural properties, both of which are in the agricultural land reserve. I don't have the exact specifics of the buffer requirements, but generally they are something that we would consider at a development permit or building stage as in consideration of a residential subdivision that was going up next to an agricultural parcel, and it would be upon the residential developer to install an appropriate barrier.
So there's no requirement to have a barrier between
Not between two agricultural properties, no.
Thank you.
I have another couple of questions. It has to do with the buildings itself. So in the second part of the motion, so B, it talks about reducing the minimum lot area for an additional dwelling for farm help from 2 hectares to 1.6 hectares. So in our bylaw, Summerland's bylaw, does it say minimum size 2 hectares?
Yes,
Okay.
Yeah.
That's not an agricultural land commission?
No, Madam Mayor.
Okay, so thank you for answering that. And the second one, the height of the building, additional, if located above an existing farm building. So is that the case?
Yes, Madam Mayor.
And what's the farm building, what's its purpose? What is that used for?
I believe it's for mechanical storage.
Mechanical storage. Thank you. Okay, Councillor Barkman.
My concern here is that the way the bylaw, or the variance is worded, as proposed, is that for a mushroom growing facility, and which would allow traditional manure-based mushroom growing facility in that facility, which is, of course, something that I don't think anybody wants to see. Can we change that to be a little more specific, to either exclude that type of growing, or to make it, or to limit the mushroom growing to the plant fiber-based process that Mr. Clausen uses?
Thank you. Kevin?
Yeah, Madam Mayor, I do have something prepared for that. We didn't want to be too heavy-handed with the motion and thought we would leave that up to council. But we would insert after minimum side setback interior for a wood-based substrate mushroom growing facility.
My apologies. Could you repeat that? I wasn't listening.
After minimum side setback interior, we would add for a wood-based substrate mushroom growing facility.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Does that satisfy?
That
Yes.
would, I think, be sufficient
Thank you.
to alleviate that concern.
Yeah, thank you. Good one. Councillor Carlson.
Unless there's further questions, I'll bring a motion forward.
Councillor Holmes.
So the building regulations bylaw sets out provisions to pay penalties for working without a building permit. And I'm just wondering if that would be instituted in this case.
Madam Mayor, if I might address that. I think at this point, we've been working with the applicant to get the applications in, and we haven't focused on that. Certainly in the strictest sense, that's how the bylaw reads. Not sure that that has in fact been common practice in many occasions as we go forward looking for compliance. Often that is overlooked. Certainly, if that's council's wish, then we can certainly be sure that it is instituted in this case. Councillor Holmes?
I think we have to get away from this culture of asking for forgiveness later rather than permission in advance. And even if, I don't know if it was intentional or unintentional, it's he said, she said sort of thing. But I don't know how we can get away, how we can send a message to the community that you can't jump the queue, you can't build without a permit, if we don't start, instituting those fines that's in the regulations. So. I don't know.
Is that where this began?
Sorry?
Is that the situation we're in? Did they actually build
Yeah, they're there.
without a permit?
No permits for anything?
Yeah. Can you just put that on hold for a minute? And if there are other questions on the motion that's here with the amendment, does anyone else have questions on that portion? And then we can discuss this further, Councillor Holm. No other questions? So could I, are you okay with bringing that forward then?
Certainly, I'll bring the motion forward as presented in the agenda with the addition, modification presented by the, I forget Kevin's title.
Do you have that in your?
Manager.
You have that recorded? Oh, yes, sorry, sorry. And you're seconding that, Councillor Holmes? Okay, any further discussion? Councillor Holmes, or sorry, Councillor Barkwell, and then Councillor Patton.
I would note for council that my big concern here was odor, and because I'm very familiar with the traditional mushroom growing odors and what a problem that is, and we don't want any more problems, whether they're from marijuana growing facilities or mushroom facilities. If there was the traditional mushroom growing facility, 30 meters wouldn't be enough, 300 meters wouldn't be enough. And I do note, though, that there's a letter from the neighbor immediately to the south, which says that they have no complaints with odor or noise or anything, and if anybody were to be in a position to be receiving odors from this facility, it would be their neighbors to the south. So that indicates to me that that there just really is, as you might expect, when they heat wood chips and plastic bags, that the odor isn't really any kind of a issue. And the second thing I would note that it would be clear that Mrs. Besler tried to address the issue with staff in 2014 and earlier, and so I don't think we can hold this against the applicant that he was obviously under the impression that he was doing things okay if staff had been unwilling to deal with any complaints from the neighbors. So that's not his fault that we're in this situation now.
Okay, we can talk more about what you just said when we talk after we've had the vote on this portion, because Councillor Holmes wanted to have a further discussion on that.
I'm a little...
Councillor Holmes wanted to have a further discussion on if or when we're going to start, penalizing people that build first and ask for forgiveness later. Correct, Councillor Holmes? Yes. So we have it on the table and it's been seconded. Councillor Carlson?
Yeah, just a few comments. I think that we need to recognize that this property is 1.65 hectares, and yet it has one of the most, if you look at the list of places where what the fungus is selling their mushrooms to, it's across the entire province. It's, they're finding a way to use a small piece of agricultural land to do something unique, to be a primary producer, and to try and create something that not only profits them, but it profits our whole community, and I think that we should be supporting not only what they're doing, but others to do similar things to what they're doing. I understand that there's an issue with a setback. I understand that there's an issue with an additional farm dwelling. However, with the intensive agriculture that's going on this piece of property, I believe that the proponent is completely justified in having that dwelling so that the manager of this farm can live on site. I also think that it's important to recognize that a complaint to the District of Summerland or a question asked to our building department is different than a complaint or a question asked to the Agricultural Land Commission. Just something that needs to be put over here because it's important to know that they're not, that those two things are mutually exclusive. The minister's bylaw standard is something that I think the District of Summerland has been looking at in the last couple of months. And as we move through this process, we talked about the building bylaw earlier today. The next step, my understanding, is to look at agriculture and to talk about our setbacks. If we were to ask this property to put their mushroom barn 30 meters from all their property lines, they wouldn't be able to build anything on this property. It's an impediment to many, many farms in this community, and it's going to continue to be so. So it is something that this council needs to work on with our development staff. So all of that said, I think that we have a complicated situation, and that the neighbors, all of the neighbors in Garnet Valley surrounding the mushroom farm should respect each other and respect each other's property and be proud that something so unique is happening there. So that's my show of support for what's happening.
Thank you, Councillor Carlson. Any further discussion? Councillor Patton and then Councillor Traynor.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm not sure if this follows along the same lines as Councillor Holmes in regards, and if I may, to the building department or to our development services. I can only assume that no occupancy permit was given for the farm use, for the accommodations for the farm worker.
Madam Mayor, as no building permits were issued, no occupancy permit was granted. Thank you.
Okay. And there's no permits were issued or occupancies given on the brown structures in which is storage unit.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. No.
Okay. Is there the possibility when permits are obtained for those, even though they are built, that double permit fee be attached to those structures? Only for the fact is that's the only way that you'd be able to give them an occupancy is with a building permit?
So, Madam Mayor, we have been in discussion with the applicant in some time before we even started receiving complaints in recent history. And so we were working through that process, and it was for the reason that they needed to apply for a building permit that we asked them to do a survey to determine exactly where the buildings were relative to property lines. So then that's what determined that, given the wording in the zoning bylaw, we required a development variance permit. So all intent has been all the way along to make application for a building permit, as I said, because we were thinking, looking at compliance. There is a section which I can reference in the building bylaw at 17.5 that talks about work beginning without a permit requiring double the fees, and so there certainly is the possibility. As I said, I don't know that practice has been evenly applied in the past, but if it's council's wish, we can certainly do so.
Okay, and yes, that is part of our second conversation, but thank you for bringing that up and clarifying that.
Thank you so much.
Councillor Traynor.
I was just going to say, I understand the frustrations on all sides of this, and I think, it's unfortunate that it's kind of come to this, and hopefully, as we improve our bylaws and procedures over the next, year, 2 years, that things will become very clear, so when people do go to the district, they get clear answers and they know exactly what they need to do. However, moving forward, I think, after considering all of the correspondence that we've had and all the documents that we have attached to this report, I think that it is fair to grant these setbacks. I do believe that 30 meters is quite restrictive for this, and in this particular case, it is restrictive, and I think that the amendment that we've added gives me confidence that what the uses are being used for right now will continue as they are. I don't believe that by granting these setbacks, we're causing any harm. And, at the end of the day, we live in Summerland. It's a farming community where it's one of our main industries. And sometimes that means finding balance and compromise between neighbors. And I think that that's what we're really trying to do in this case is honor industry while, trying to balance everybody's needs. And
Where's the compromise?
Sometimes it doesn't balance out perfectly, but we have to weigh a whole bunch of different factors in our decisions.
Thank you, Councillor Traynor. Any further discussion or comments? Okay, so right now we are voting on the motion that has A, B, and C, 3 sections there. All those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed, so that carries. Thank you. Councillor Holmes, would you like to start the discussion, or further the discussion on the potential for fees, charges?
I think I kind of said everything. I just think that I think there is a certain perception in this community that you can get away with certain things when not play by the rules, and we've got to stamp that out. If not now, when? And I just find it hard to believe that, somebody would build a living quarters and you think that you might not need a building permit for that.
I'm sorry, this is a discussion of council.
Just wanted to address this.
Any other comments? Okay, yeah, even if you want to repeat what you discussed before.
No. Thank you, Madam Mayor. I do agree with Councillor Holmes. I think that it puts Mayor and Council in a very awkward position when work is done and then forgiveness is asked for. On the other hand, we have been in where we haven't enabled, we haven't given solutions, we haven't gone our best to help out the building community, and this is what happens when you don't enable, when you don't empower, when you don't work with. That is when things go underground and things happen off the side. So I think I agree with Councillor Holmes. I think at a point we have to draw the line in the sand and say, okay, you know what? You ask for permission instead of forgiveness. But on the other hand, I think as we move forward, I think we have to change our culture also in regards to being to helping instead of maybe being a little hindrance in moving projects forward. So, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Barkle?
No, I don't want to repeat myself.
Okay. If I might ask, Corey, if you could read for us again the section that speaks about the penalties.
Okay, there's probably 2 things. I'll read that section, and the Director of Corporate Services can talk to you a little bit about council policy in terms of bylaw enforcement.
Okay, thank you.
Section 17.5, working without a permit in the current building bylaw says every person who commences work requiring a building permit without first obtaining such a permit shall pay double the value of the permit fee. every person who continues past the first required inspection shall pay triple the value of the permit fee. Every person who continues construction while the stop work order is in place shall pay 5 times the value of the permit fee. As I mentioned earlier, we had been carrying on what we felt was council's policy in terms of wanting to achieve compliance, and we had not considered this aspect at this time. Corporate Officer?
So if I may, council adopted a policy a couple of years ago, which is the bylaw enforcement policy, to ensure that bylaw enforcement was done in a consistent and fair manner. Section 5 under enforcement in that policy states that the district's primary enforcement objective is to obtain voluntary compliance. Individuals who are being investigated will be requested to comply with bylaw requirements and be given the opportunity to achieve compliance before further action is taken to the limits noted in bylaws or as outlined in this policy. It then goes on to talk about the ways in which enforcement can occur. And prior to that particular statement, in determining whether to commence actual enforcement proceedings if the individual is not compliant, the district's to consider the scale, nature, and duration of the contravention, the amount of time that it's elapsed since the contravention occurred, the impact of that contravention on the community, the resources available to resolve the matter, the costs associated with enforcement, whether public safety is at risk, and whether enforcement may be a deterrent in future cases, noting that the underlying objective is compliance.
Councillor Holmes?
So I guess my question in this case, was this voluntary compliance, or was it a result of the complaint, or was it a result of the District of Summerland's procedures not being enforced?
Corey? Madam Mayor, the applicant for the development variance permit approached the Development Services Department prior to receiving any complaints. In the most recent history, certainly in the last few months.
So that addresses the development variance permit portion of this?
It is as a result of our conversation with the applicant regarding the requirement for a permit.
And again, we don't really know, but it seems that the building that started back in 2014 was done without a building permit, and then successive buildings, the same thing, including accommodation?
The accommodation is not something that we have researched. I think you'll find that that was sort of an evolution of a building over time that has now become accommodation. Certainly, we have no history on it being accommodation. I think that our focus has been on the new storage building structure. That's the permit that we were in discussion over, the new storage building.
Any other questions or comments? Councillor Holmes, would you like to bring a motion forward, or was this more a statement of, you know, we've got to stop this practice, and how do you do it?
Yeah, no, I don't think I'll bring a motion forward after hearing the Director of Development Services, her explanation, and after hearing Councillor Patton. I agree with them, and I think it's something that we need to address as we're addressing the new bylaw and all that other sort of thing, that we need to have a new beginning, and that new beginning is, you know, ask for your permits beforehand, and so I'll leave it there.
Thank you. Might I ask, I think you were talking about, I realize there's a lot of development-related bylaws that need to be reviewed. There's a farm bylaw that's under consideration?
Actually, Madam Mayor, I have been researching, and this is where Councillor Carlson was referring to, because I've been working on the temporary farm worker housing aspect and the recent changes under the Agricultural Land Commission Act. I've been doing a lot of research about what tools are available. So you will be receiving a council report about farm worker housing, and through that process, I have discovered that similar to the City of Kelowna, we may want to consider development permit area guidelines or farm bylaw. However, to have a farm bylaw, we would have to have special permission from the Minister of Agriculture. So it's quite, again, another really large undertaking to consider how we want to plan our edges and whether we want to exercise the control that a farm bylaw would give us inside of the reserve in the same way that we have controls for buffering on the outside edge of the reserve. So more to come.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Carlson?
Yeah, just on that, I wonder if, before too much gets done on that, if we might have a conversation of council about what it would entail to change the way that to change what we do when it comes to farming and our bylaws, just before we go too far down the road of making new plans.
Within the legislation?
Yeah, whether it's a committee of the whole or a workshop.
Okay. Councillor Barco?
Yeah, I would second that non-motion of Councillor Carlson. I think that is a discussion we need to have, because the Right to Farm Act, governs agriculture activities on the all the ALC land in the community, and I don't know if we necessarily want to be messing with that.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, so we're on to 11.2 then, right? Which is the 2018 annual report, and I think, is that yours, Jeremy? Thank you.
So the annual report is a legislative requirement under the community charter. Hopefully everybody's had a chance to read it. I won't repeat the entire thing. It is many pages, much of it financial information. It is in draft form until council adopts it, so if there's any errors or omissions, please mention them now.
I have a question. I don't know if Councillor Barkwell or perhaps Councillor Holmes knows the answer. I was under the impression that Councillor Barkwell was the alternate on the Ag Advisory Committee, but perhaps that changed. Whenever I can't make it, I contact him, but I'm wondering if I might...
Just bring it up.
It's possible that I just...
Nicole is looking it up.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Do you know? I thought it was you, but it used to be you. Maybe it changed.
I think maybe it's changed, I can't remember.
These were all taken from the records we have on hand.
Okay, so that is just something I should note.
If it's wrong, it will be corrected.
I think it's probably correct, but let us know.
Anything else on the annual report? How much did you have to change, Michael?
Only like one word.
Good. Okay. So could I have someone bring that forward, please, just to be received by council? Councillor Carlson, seconded by Councillor Holmes. Any further discussion? All in favor? Great. On to 11.3, Okanagan Lake Protection Strategy. It's looking for a letter of support. That's also yours, Jeremy?
It's not much to say.
Not much to say. Let's see. So in the agenda, it talks about what the Okanagan Lake Protection Strategy is, and presumably everybody has read that. Is there someone that would like to bring forward the resolution? And I'll ask you to read it too, please. Anyway, Councillor Patton.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. That the Okanagan Collaborative Conservation Program and the South Okanagan Smilkameen Conservation Program's Okanagan Lake Protection Strategy to identify policies, regulations, and best practices to enhance multi-jurisdictional shoreline management to protect water quality and environmental values of Okanagan Lake be supported in principle, and that staff be directed to provide a letter expressing the District of Summerland's support of the Okanagan Lake Protection Strategy.
Thank you. Okanagan Lake is a huge tourism asset, so it does need protection. Okay, any further discussion on this? Oh, no, we need a seconder. Councillor Holmes? Further discussion? All right, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Thank you. 11.4, Community Energy Leadership Program Grant Application. That's for you, Tammy.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. As noted in your package, Council, the district has been invited to move forward from our previous expression of interest to a full application under the Community Energy Leadership Program. And the funds that we're applying for are to implement actions that will be coming out of our corporate climate action plan. Although the plan isn't complete yet, we do know that some of the draft actions will include the installation of heat pumps to replace carbon intensive HVAC equipment in many of our buildings, which is already failing and past end of life. And so we are seeking council support for that application. And as part of that, this is a unique grant application where it actually requires the council champion to be the one to sign the application rather than a staff person. And so we're asking for council's direction to have the previously identified champion, Councillor Traynor, sign the application on the district's behalf.
Perfect.
I'll move that motion.
Thank you. And seconded by Councillor Patton. Any questions or discussion?
What's her handwriting
Excellent. It is excellent. Okay, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? None. Now on to 11.5, the Center Stage Theatre entry signs. This is something for Angelique.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. At the last council meeting, you may remember a letter from Susan Gibbs, which was submitted to the Cultural Development Committee. That committee, after reading it, felt that the matter should come before council because there would be financial implications, and they thought it was beyond their scope. So I'm going to give you a real fast rundown for anyone who doesn't remember 1987, the year, well, 1985 to 1987, the years that the Center Stage Theatre fundraising efforts, cooperative agreement with the school district, and the final erection of the Center Stage Theatre occurred in what was the old cafeteria. So it was a many-year effort, and like many of the Summerland cooperative efforts, with it taking so many different community members and groups, there was a real strong desire within the community to create a space that everybody could enjoy. Things sort of stalled out at a certain point in 1987 where the total budget wasn't quite being met, and one of the lawyers, who was a Rotarian, very involved with fundraising, talked to one of his clients about the possibility of her bequeathing a large portion of her will to the Center Stage Theatre effort, as well as a number of other endowments she gave to the school. So Janet Ritchie gave $130,000 to a total effort of $776,000 to build the new theatre. And at that time, through 1987, there was also a big naming process going on where the community tried to decide what was the best name for the theatre. In the end, Center Stage Theatre was decided as the theater's name, and the JR logo that's pictured in blue that says Center Stage Theater, then there's a JR circled. That insignia or logo was developed to commemorate Janet Ritchie's substantial contribution. And what's happened over the years, as with many things that are done by groups, is some of the records have not always been as front of center for everyone as they could be. And we do have a joint use agreement with the school district, but again, the school district has changed from being a Summerland school district to now School District 67. So there's been a bit of loss of corporate memory. And as the high school renovation occurred in the last couple of years, a lot of the branding has come down, and so the theater no longer says Center Stage or carries the JR logo on it. So the community member, Susan Gibbs, who wrote the letter, was quite concerned about the loss of donor acknowledgement in the community, which she felt was quite disrespectful. The interior of the lobby did have donor plaques, but we still have them. The district hasn't thrown them away, nor has the school district. But because they were created over time, they're quite mismatched. And after the lobby was renovated and looked pretty new, it was sort of thought that perhaps a new sort of donor acknowledgement should be come up with. So at this point, the suggestion from the community member was some form of acknowledgement should happen. Her concerns were threefold: that the theater itself is not clearly marked from the street. There is no acknowledgement on the building any longer of Janet Ritchie's name or the JR logo, and within the interior, there is no donor wall. So there's sort of three opportunities for signage, and her perspective was that some form of committee between the district, the school district, and the community. So her suggestion was, this is why she sent her letter to the Cultural Development Committee, and thought that perhaps with a combination of the school district committee, or there's a management committee essentially that currently makes decisions on the Center Stage Theater. She felt that that should come together under some kind of auspices of this council to properly acknowledge those who've helped build that theater.
Does anyone have questions of Angelique? Councillor Holmes.
I think this is really important that we do this. I just wondering if the wording of the recommended resolution might tie the hands of in some respects of what's possible. Specifically, say if we want to have a donor wall or something like that. That's not incorporated in the resolution. So I'm just wondering if we just, maybe change the wording of the resolution a little bit to basically leave it to the school district, the Cultural Development Committee, and the Rec Department to come up with some way to commemorate the community contributions. And I think I don't think we have to get too detailed, but because I don't see the donor wall in here.
Thank you, through the Mayor. One thing I should also clarify in this recommendation and this report, my initial conversations with the Secretary-Treasurer of the School District 67 were to alert him that I was bringing this report forward to Council so that he would know that it had come up. He has indicated that he would have a hard time finding funding out of education dollars for marking up the building. So I think one of the things that will come forward as well is there is going to be a cost for no matter what kind of naming is undertaken. And just to be clear to Council that perhaps there needs to be some kind of consideration towards that.
Councillor Carlson?
Yeah, just to follow on that, I think that it won't necessarily be a very large cost, but I also think it's up to the school board to have that conversation. And so hopefully this will get past the Secretary Treasurer and be part of an agenda, so that the actual trustees will be the ones that can understand the history as well, because I think that's important in all of this, is the history that we didn't have, but now we have, and so I think they need to have it as well.
Too bad we didn't know about this morning when we were meeting with the school district. But we are going to be following up with another meeting shortly, so, Councillor Holmes?
I'm just wondering if there's a process with the school district for funding the upgrades to the theater, and I seem to remember in the past that you'd sit down with them annually and figure out what needed to be done and who would pay for what, and I'm just wondering if that's still done. Do we know if it's still done that way, or is it more on a ad hoc basis now?
Thank you, through the mayor. Although that's not my department, I do have some insight as to how things have gone over the years. And in 1987, there was a very strong community-led committee which did comprise of both school district, and community members. And over time, that's disappeared. And now, the Center Stage Theatre is essentially managed by a management group which is comprised of staff from both the school district and the District of Summerland. So the District of Summerland Recreation Department staff who manages the theater bookings sits on that committee and works with a number of the other school district staff. So to answer your question, the decision-making has shifted over the years, and the existing service agreement that we have for the Center Stage Theatre is a mimeographed, typewritten, very out-of-date agreement, which probably needs updating.
But just to follow up, but just for, but in terms of deciding who pays for what, that's decided by the management group? The management group will say?
It's moved to that. It has, and I would say it's also evolved with the shift from the school district being now School District 67, that things have changed too. The most recent renovations were done without the District of Summerland realizing they were going to happen. So the school district took on that renovation, and district staff were surprised. So there was no consultative process in that.
Councillor Holmes has suggested that really it's the first part, that you're suggesting. Is that correct, Councillor Holmes? To create signage for the entrance to commemorate the community contributions to the building?
I think just exactly the way it is, except just take out to create signage for the entrance to commemorate the community contributions to the building, and the second part is fine too, if that makes sense. And that commemoration may be signage at the entrance, but it could be other things as well, or in addition to. So we leave that to the committee to decide.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
You have that?
Yeah.
And if I understand that correctly, you're basically allowing for the opportunity that a few different options could be considered. Yeah. Thank you.
Oops. Could I have someone second that motion? Councillor Patton, thank you. Oh, I've lost my thing. Any further discussion on this?
Do you take discussion from the gallery?
Nope. It's all right, it's a business meeting of council. Sorry, John.
Missed your chance, John.
So I'll call the question then. All in favor? Any opposed? None. So that's carried. 11.6, rental property, 7646 Dunn Street. That is for you, Jeremy, I believe. Thank you.
So this is in regards to one of a number of properties that the district owns as holding properties. There's one next to the fire hall for potential expansion of the bays there. And there's a number of properties on Dunn Street next to the wastewater treatment plant, which were purchased for potential expansion of that plant, probably long after I'm retired, but that's the purpose of them. They are agricultural zoned, but there are residencies on them. Most of them existed at the time that they were purchased, one was moved on to it. Older properties, not in the best state. Recently, the district has been doing assessments of them. Unfortunately, before all the assessments were completed in this one property at 7646 Dunn Street, we discovered over the months of winter and changing into spring that the septic system has failed completely. The geotechnical engineer who specializes in septic systems has looked at it in detail. They were digging holes all through the backyard. It is beyond repair. It doesn't meet modern standards to meet environmental regulations, and there's no fix for it. It would need to be completely replaced in order to meet environmental standards. Being where it is, it's very close to the water table down there on the lake, so there's some concerns about that. And we've been given as a district until today to make a decision as to whether or not that septic system will be decommissioned, fully replaced with a compliant system, or if that property will be connected to the wastewater treatment plant in some way. Costs to replace the whole septic system estimated at $35,000. Estimated cost to connect to the wastewater treatment plant directly, if technically feasible, could be $25,000. That does require going through the parking lot of the water treatment plant, wastewater treatment plant, and punching a hole through the foundation underground and connecting it directly into the system and bypassing various filters. So obviously some issues with both those. Staff, it's attached in the report, staff have done a comprehensive review of the house as a whole to see how it is doing regardless of the septic system. Estimated costs to bring it up to acceptable standards between $160,000 and $180,000. That's a 10 to 13 year break even for the district, not including required replacement of the roof and ongoing maintenance. As noted in the report, total revenues versus expenses for all rental properties for the district's netting roughly $30,000 a year off of these properties, based on the stats that we have for just the last year, 2018, when we started breaking it down by property rather than lumping them all together. So time may tell a different story, but that's what we have right now. So under the Residential Tenancy Act, as landlords, the district has the option to decide that this tenancy agreement is frustrated. It's a legal term saying that the district, out of its own control, is no longer able to meet the requirements of the agreement that it entered into with the tenants. Some would call it an act of God. It's just something that happened, and that the budget, the 2019 budget, is a policy decision of council. Without altering the budget through an amendment of the budget bylaw, council does not have the policy in existence right now to fund replacements or repairs to this house or any other properties. So in law, it is frustrated. Now, this is an unfortunate situation for the tenants. Under that act as well, though, there is some consideration of the tenants in this occurrence. Going back in time, looking at the notes, we can see that the failure of the system may have occurred somewhere between February and March this year, very clearly occurred. There's definitely been issues with the house before, but it's hard to say what exactly those were. So by mutual agreement, the district and the tenant can agree on that date, and the district will then pay back any rents paid back to that date. So giving them a check for all the rent paid from the frustration date. As well, The property is still usable as a property regardless of the septic system. The house is livable. If alternate means can be used, the tenants do have an RV on the property. I don't see any issue in letting them use the RV on the property and using the house for what it's worth, but the septic system does need to be decommissioned or replaced. So the toilets won't flush, the laundry won't wash, you can't use a dishwasher, but perhaps if something can be done where they can sleep in the bedrooms in the house and wash up and do dishes in the RV until they can find an alternate residence, I don't see any issue for the district in allowing this to be a sort of a transition summer for them. If there's any questions.
Councillor Patton and then Councillor Blackwell.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. To our corporate officer, please. Do we have any, I know we have very limited, but do we have any vacant housing available at this time?
There's one house that is vacant, and it is slated to be destroyed because it was completely damaged by water next to this property, which is actually why it took so long for the district to confirm that it was a failure of the septic system, because the neighboring property had a water leak that completely saturated the area. But that house needs to come down. It's beyond repair. So no.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Barkwell?
I look at the budget here and I see things, you know, a really large number.
Please use your microphone.
Oh, sorry. I look at the budget here and I see a really large number to bring it up to standard. And then I see, you know, numbers like $10,000 for new appliances. And I'm thinking, well, you know, our appliances didn't cost $10,000. There's quite a bit in here because there's fruit trees. You know, if someone was to buy that property, they would bring it up to standard for considerably less than this budget here of 160,000, was it? 150 to 180,000. It just doesn't seem realistic to me. I'm not, you know, when I see $10,000 for some appliances, it makes me question the whole report, frankly. You know, the deck, maybe it could be done, you know, could we revisit this and say, what would we do it if we were a prudent homeowner that didn't have an unlimited budget? No.
I can't answer that question.
I can speak to it a little bit. Because of the structure of the house and the particular systems that are in it, something such as the heating system are ancient and complicated to replace. If it were any older, I think we'd have to be shoveling coal into the heating system. And it's not just one appliance, it's all the appliances other than one. So, and that would, of course, be the cost of the hardware and the labor to remove, dispose, and replace with the appliance. So it is intended to be a realistic evaluation of the costs.
Councillor Carlson and then Holmes.
I'm wondering if, actually, it's not really a question, but I think we need to think about what the long-term implication would be. I mean, if we go to invest or even $35,000, and then another $35,000, and then another $35,000, it's going to be part of a long-term strategy, and that's something that we need to really think about. Is it worth keeping dilapidated, falling apart rental homes, or is it perhaps better to try and create some proper housing so that more people can live in a place like that and have an opportunity here? The building next door is also to be condemned. I think we need to think more than, you know, it's tough that, you know, the deadline is today. That's not really very fair. But I do think that looking at this as a long-term either investment or opportunity, or long-term loss, is where council needs to go on this.
Councillor Holmes?
Yeah, I was kind of going to say the same thing. I think we have to, there's the long-term and the short-term we need to look at. Long-term, I think we need to have a discussion what we want to do with all those lots down there, with all that land. I don't know, maybe we want to sell it all off, in which case, it's a pretty nice looking house actually, and maybe somebody will want to buy it and do something with it. So I don't know if we need to rush into demolishing it, but maybe we want to demolish them all and turn it into a farm because it is ALR land. I don't know, but I think we need to have that discussion for what we do long term, and I don't think we're going to decide it tonight.
No.
In the short term, however, I think we do have to show some compassion for the existing tenant, and this idea of allowing them to transition over the summer, stay in their RV, if that works for them, that's great. I think we need to sit down with them. I don't know if BC Housing can help out at all, if we can, to help them find a place, but I don't think the district, we want to get a reputation of being a slum landlord, so I think we need to help them out any way we can.
Councillor Traynor?
Yeah, I agree with that, and I think if we didn't have tenants in the house, I don't think that this is something that we would continue to put money into. And so long-term, I don't think that we should be doing this, but the fact that we have tenants in there right now, I definitely think that we need to help them out and see if we can find a solution in the meantime for them.
Councillor Barkwell?
I think where I was really going with my comments about the repair budget was that I'd hate to see the place demolished. I think that if we did sell it, and the motion doesn't address what's next, whether, what happens after it's vacated, and obviously something has to happen if we did accept this motion, and so I guess that would be another report and another recommendation and another discussion on another day.
Absolutely. What is before us now is the fact that they are living in an area that is deemed unsafe and unsanitary, and they need to be, they need to vacate as quickly as possible. And along with that conversation is, what is it that the district is able to do? We've heard a little bit from our corporate officer. But I agree, I think we need to have a long-term plan for this area with our development services and other staff to determine, because this block of properties has come up so much in the last couple of years. So we'll address that tonight, but I agree with you, Councillor Barkwell. Councillor Holmes?
Yeah, I'd just like to note that in the staff report, it says that the staff recommendation is that the house be vacated and demolished, and if costs can be recovered through the sale of the logs, they take advantage of that. That's where I say let's put on the brakes a bit. Let's not do the demolishing part until we have a good plan for going forward.
Jeremy?
If I may just add another thing to that. If the district decides at a later date to repair the house, then we're actually contravening the Residential Tenancy Act, and we'll owe the current tenants 2 years of rent, because we'll have then made the decision that it actually was rentable. It's like the renovictions that have occurred in places like Vancouver, so it does need to be clearly decided at this point that the house is not rentable as is.
But could we decide that, well, we don't want to do what's needed to bring it up to standard, but maybe somebody else will, and we decide to sell the property? Is that a...
If it's sold as is,
Yeah.
that would be acceptable.
Okay.
You were mentioning that the Residential Tenancy Act, boy, I'm having troubles, it's getting late, I guess, would allow from a mutually agreed start to, I guess, well, we're at the end of June. So February or March, would that be 5 months?
Yeah, looking back at our notes, it's not unreasonable to say that it became clear that the septic system was a serious problem in February of this year. So the district would owe the tenants 4 months' rent back and free rent from here on because they're not technically going to be renting it.
And just to give them a little bit of assistance as they look for another place to live.
Yes, correct.
Councillor Holmes?
I'll bring the motion forward if, yeah.
Okay.
Want me to read all it, or as presented?
In the interest of time, let's just, as presented.
Okay, as presented.
Seconder, Councillor Barkwell? Any further discussion on this?
Just to say that it's unfortunate that this has happened, and I hope that the tenants can work with staff to make sure that they have an enjoyable summer and find a place that's comfortable and safe to live.
Okay. I think we all have the same sentiment. I'll call the question then. All those in favor? Any opposed? It's carried. Thank you, Jeremy. 11.7 Solar and Storage Project, Secondary Sites. Tammy.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. As requested, staff have outlined the other shortlisted sites for the solar and storage project, including their challenges and opportunities for council's information, should the preferred site identified by council be deemed infeasible following the detailed review underway as directed by council. Further to the discussion with the funders mentioned in the report, staff have confirmed that the Gas Tax Fund is prepared to offer the District of Summerland a contract for the $6 million grant with a provision that no funds will be released until a motion confirming the site has been passed by council. This contract would allow the District of Summerland to move forward with selecting and ordering panels, batteries, and other system components with a level of security we currently don't have. Still, there is a financial risk if we were to order these components and a site could not be found. The District of Summerland would thereby be on the hook, as it were, for that money. So staff would bring forward a discussion to council before finalizing any orders should a site not be finalized by that time. But given the availability of other options as outlined in the report and staff's confidence that no major issues will come from the detailed analyses, staff are prepared to move forward with that contract to secure the funding so we can continue to move the project forward. As noted in the report, staff have tried to give some high-level costing for the various aspects of the sites, but it's difficult without a detailed plan to put anything forward with confidence. So if council was requesting more detail at this time on any of the potential backup sites, staff would ask for direction on resourcing for that more detailed analysis. And I'll leave it there and ask if there's any questions about the content of the report. Thank you.
Okay, question period. Any questions?
Do you have any questions?
Councillor Patton.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you.
So basically, the report that we're looking at in front of us is pretty much identical to the previous reports, where we've talked about the Dunn Street property, you've talked about the Dunn Street properties, we've talked about the landfills, but the report really doesn't go into a true potential backup site. It still defines that the original site is the optimum that we're looking at, and the others are secondary with really not any great uses attached to them. Am I correct when I read that?
So staff, council passed a resolution identifying a site as the preferred site for the project and gave staff direction to proceed with detailed analysis of that site. And then further to that, asked staff to bring back information about a potential backup for the project should the preferred site fail. And so at this point, this is the level of information that's available for those shortlisted sites through the initial site selection process.
If I may ask another question? If the site was a contaminated site, say back in the day, they dumped PCBs from transformers on their property, where would we go from there? Would we then start taking money and putting it into that land for remediation so that we could put the solar panels there? Or do we look at an alternative site based on what it would cost us for the long run?
Staff will be seeking direction from the province as to the requirements for any potential remediation on the site, and then depending on that direction, we would seek out any costing estimates that would be required and come back to council for direction on how to proceed at that time.
I think the idea of choosing a secondary site is so that we have a contingency plan if the testing that site has to undergo, and is currently undergoing, proves that that's not a suitable site after all, which would include remediation for contaminated areas.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We really don't have an alternative site set, though. Like, we know that
That's what we're talking about, a secondary site.
True, but the report isn't indicating a secondary site. It's going back to the same report that we've looked at from staff in regards to the to the landfill, to the Dunn Street properties. So we're getting the same information, but we don't have a secondary site where they're saying, well, this site again or this site, but they haven't gave us that secondary site location.
Councillor Carlson.
Just from my understanding, the frustration or the concern you have is that you want a number one secondary site. You want a number one and a number two. Is that
Absolutely.
the understanding? So, number one preferred site has been identified based on all the criteria, right? And we have that chosen as our preferred site. I would suggest that number two is currently up to council to look at these three options here and determine if one of those would be best suited based on our criteria, because my understanding is they're all presented as suitable alternatives, although not as good as the number one preferred site. And so it would be in the best interest of council, I think, to choose if we want to prioritize one of these sites over the others and call that the secondary or the backup location.
I think that's what we asked for.
And these sites are chosen based on the full study that was done by the professionals, right? It was based on how much sun and how far away these are and how much dust and wind and all the things that are going to impact the feasibility of this. So that's why there's only 3 instead of 30, because there were a lot more sites looked at, but a lot of them were taken off the list.
Councillor Holmes and then Councillor Barkwell.
Yeah, I think, we could choose a number one secondary site right now if we wanted. We could say, okay, it's surrounding the landfill. That seems to be the best second option. But situations change. We were just discussing the Dunn Street properties and what we're going to do with those and have a discussion. So maybe, as a result of that discussion, all of a sudden that would become the better secondary site, right? Maybe we build a new rec center right next to the arena complex and all of a sudden we've got all this roof space available. That might then become the secondary or even the primary site, right? So we can't really take into account what might happen in the future. So, and to me, I don't think we need to, I don't think there's a great urgency for us to choose one second option. If we need to, we can choose it if and when that, we can cross that bridge if and when we come to it.
Councillor Barkwell.
Further to Councillor Holmes' comments, I think what I was expecting was additional information or at least somebody to tell us what additional information is required to advance alternative locations. I understand that there's weather monitoring or something now up at the Cartwright location. Is that correct?
We've installed a solar monitoring station at the preferred site, yes.
And that's, but if there's no problems with that site, you would build it regardless of what that solar monitoring station told you, I presume.
So the solar monitoring station is intended to verify the information that we've received from the consultants regarding the amount of solar energy that we can expect to garner from that site. And so if the information we get from the solar monitoring site shows extreme variance from what we understand to be the solar resource on site, we would bring that information back to council for discussion.
Yeah, okay. I don't suppose you expect any extreme variances on a location that is like that.
The professionals that we chose to engage with are industry experts, and so we trust the information, but staff proceed with a level of fiduciary responsibility and the old adage of trust but verify.
So I'm wondering if we shouldn't do the same sort of thing at one or two alternative sites if we want to, if there's a point to having alternative sites ready. Or some, like advance the alternative sites. And further to that, I'm looking at these challenges and opportunities, and I see under challenges for the water treatment plant and landfill site, not within urban growth area. Well, to me, that's a good reason for it to be there. We don't want to put solar sites right within the urban growth area. We had two former mayors come and speak to us tonight saying, you're putting the solar panel right in the middle of our urban growth area. So that one should be moved over to the opportunity side. And that's probably if we have to pick alternative site to locate, to pursue, perhaps that area would be my first choice.
The surrounding the landfill would be your first choice. Okay. Councillor Carlson.
Yeah, question, you had mentioned, Tammy, that in order for them to release the funding, you need a motion. Is that something we still need to move forward, or is that based on previous conversation? Do you need a preferred site motion from council, or do you have one?
Staff's understanding of the previously made motion was that it was contingent on the results of the detailed analysis, whether or not that site would be finalized by council.
Okay.
And so once those...
So you're still waiting for that detailed analysis?
Right, and to bring the results back and then ask if council feels they have enough information to finalize that site.
Okay, thank you. I just want to add to that, just to follow up on Councillor Barkwell, the information from the planning professionals that we have received gives me enough comfort to know that putting a solar array project right there is not going to impede or destroy the potential for long or short-term growth in Summerland. So I think I just want to reiterate that. I still am a proponent of the proposed site on Cartwright Mountain, and I think that if there are PCBs up there, it would be better to put a solar site and remediate it for the next 30 years than to put houses and which may or may not even be a feasible thing to do based on the information that we've received. So that's all I'm going to say to it.
Councillor Holmes, did you have your hand raised? No. Councillor Barkwell.
Yeah, I'd like to ask Councillor Carlson, I don't understand when your last comment there said may or may not be even feasible based on information we received. What What are you referring to?
Well, based on the opinions and the professional comments made by planners of whether or not we would be able to build something affordable or worth building up there at the density, based on the environment, based on the land and the topography and the access. I mean, we were told that it's not going to be an ideal place to make a whole bunch of money.
Well, I
And
would
that's
say
what
that-
that's what the professionals have told us, and I'm going to choose to believe that they are correct.
Well, I think we have other professional opinions.
Okay, Councillor Traynor.
I think that we've already identified a site right now. We made a decision on that, and it's not cast in stone because we're waiting for further information to come, which is being done right now. When that comes in, then we make our final decision, I guess is what Tammy needs to go forward. In terms of the second location, I don't know if we should be spending time and money doing research quite yet. I mean, in our minds, we can know which one we think might work for our second location, but I don't know if we need to go down that road until we have our final information on the current site that we've identified.
The recommendation shows that this report be received for information. You're okay with that, Councillor Holmes? Okay, and seconded by Councillor Carlson. So now's the time to have further discussion, now that we've got it on the table. Is this something that you would, how are people feeling about this? I'm talking about the resolution that's on the table, receiving this for information.
It's a good piece of
Okay.
information.
Is it the information you're looking for, is it the information you want? We've heard that we have a preferred site, and we do have a preferred site, and that extra testing is being done, analysis is being done on that site. Do we receive this for information as it is? Do we say, well, I would like to look at 1, 2, or 3 as the possible secondary site, just in reserve in case the detailed testing shows that maybe this isn't suitable for a solar array? Councillor Carlson.
I think that once we have the information back on our preferred site, and it's determined whether or not this is where it is going to be able to proceed, then we need to, if we have to come back and look at an alternative site, then we have a short list of places. But I would suggest that we carry on.
Okay, I will call the question then. All those in favor? Opposed? 2 opposed, Councillor Barkwell and Councillor Pett. So that carries. Pardon me? Yes, we do need a motion, thank you. Watching the clock. It is almost 9:57. We will need a motion. Thank you, Councillor Holmes, seconded by Councillor Patton. This needs to be unanimous, is that correct? Or no? I think it needs to be unanimous. Well, let's have a vote, see if it will be unanimous.
It's going to save us.
All those in favor? Opposed? Are you opposed to going past 10 o'clock?
No. So if I don't vote, it's in favor, right?
Yeah, you could cooperate, though. Okay, so we are going past 10 o'clock. 11.8, drought management update. I guess this would be Chris and crew, right?
Correct.
Thank you.
I'm going to turn this over to Devin Vandermeulen, our manager of utilities, to speak to.
Okay, thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you.
So at time of writing this report, the province had recently gone into a drought level 2, and since then, I think you're all well aware that they are now in a drought level 3. Differential assessment is fairly broad for regions like the Okanagan, considering snowpack, precipitation, weather forecast, etc. There is no specific translation necessarily from their drought levels to municipal drought levels, and they understand that well. And as well, from what we understand, they are most concerned about small systems or individual licensees who draw directly from streams and may have either very little or no storage. So the district uses indicators within our drought response plan. The trigger graph is one of the most significant items. Currently, as you can see on page 2, we are well away from the zone or the shaded zone that may trigger us to go into a further level of or a higher level, I guess, of drought. Other indicators considered, snowpack, of course, this year was very low. Reservoir levels, although our reservoirs are all full, we did stop spilling a bit early this year. Demand on our plant and systems has been fairly moderate, and staff are monitoring fish flow levels very closely this year to ensure that we're not releasing more water out of Thirsk than we need to. But of course, there's potential for this hot, dry summer over the coming months. Most Okanagan communities either remain at level 1 or have increased to level 1 with some customer communication, as have we. And staff is continuing to recommend remaining in level 1, understanding that we're reviewing data and meeting regularly.
Thank you. Councillor Carlson?
When did the Thirsk stop spilling?
June 14th.
And do we still run a contest to make it a public
We do.
thing to see if people will start to pay attention?
There's a contest, and we do actually have to select a time of day, which is a bit arbitrary, but we do decide on a time.
Would it be something that we might, especially if we have another dry year, try and promote and get more people involved? I know, because I hadn't really heard about it, but I know it's a thing that has happened. Just something to throw out there, just so people are paying attention.
Sure.
Just an idea.
I will again encourage people to sign up at makewaterwork.ca, make your pledge.
But that's not like the district's contest of when the dam stops spilling? That's...
Oh, no.
That's, I think, would be fun
that's something different. That's
encourage more people
water
to pay
conservation.
attention. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, that actually was fun to do. It's part of Earth Week. Councillor Holmes.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. I think it would, help not only fun, but it would help raise awareness of years like this where June 14th is pretty early.
pretty early.
And it might make people more aware of the drought situation we're in. I just have a question. Does anybody draw water between headwaters and the water treatment plant? Is anybody else drawing that water besides us? Or is it all coming to us?
I guess I'm not aware, although there's a few ranches along the way that would likely draw. If they're not drawing directly out of Trout Creek, then they're drawing out of wells that would be of the same water.
And so the impact of that would be
It's very minimal.
Negligible.
Yeah. Okay.
Councillor Barkwill.
I think for some of us, the stop spilling date contest might be fun, but for 90% of people in Summerland, they couldn't spell Thirsk Dam, and it wouldn't
It's a
really...
good reason to encourage them to
Maybe that would help
participate.
encourage, raise awareness. Anyhow, I'm glad to see that we're sticking to our plan and not reacting to bulletins that are going out to the province-wide and valley-wide, and people in Summerland have paid a lot of money for our water storage, so we may as well enjoy a stress-free existence with it for as long as it lasts, and without any growth, it might last for a long time.
Alrighty. Any other questions of our staff? Okay, could I have someone bring forward that for information, please? Councillor Traynor and Councillor Patton seconds. All those in favor? Thank you. 11.9, we're almost there, Council. Wharton Street Storm Extension. This is Chris again?
Yes.
Thank you.
So in the report, I've got 4 slides to show the situation that we've encountered over on Kelly Avenue in Wharton with regards to the Hillcrest Village development. This first slide shows, based on our records, this is what the existing storm system showed with an independent system from Kelly Avenue, which was piped through the site and made its way to the creek over on Prairie Valley Road. And the downtown system shown in the upper right corner being an independent system that mainly infiltrated at various locations in the downtown core. So based on that, this shows the design of the site with the building going up. The pipe that crossed the site from Kelly Avenue needed to be removed. A new infiltration system needed to be put in to handle the flows that would be experienced on Kelly Avenue. And then there was site servicing that was required on Wharton that was going to be an extension of the existing pipe from the roundabout up to the site and into the site to the parking lot. What we've encountered during construction is that downtown system was not completely independent, and it's either an overflow or a piped connection that we're not sure if there's minimal infiltration in this location and it's an overflow, or if it's a direct pipe connection that was existed to the Kelly Avenue pipe. And so now we're left with a situation where the room and the dry wells that are proposed for Kelly Avenue can't handle the downtown flows that are expected, and that pipe connection needs to be reestablished in some way. The most logical solution at this point would be to extend that pipe on Wharton from where the developer was tying in and was extending to and tying into their property, to continue that up to Kelly Avenue and connect the system there. That would provide an outlet back to the creek on Prairie Valley Road where it had previously went. Council might recall this is one of the items that we had discussed in budget with regards to the off-site improvements with this site. The only exclusion would be a manhole that was proposed at Kelly Avenue to bring a storm system along Kelly Avenue if we wished in the future. We're just recommending that this just be a pipe connection from one manhole where the development leaves off to the existing one at Kelly Avenue. So the total estimated cost of this work is $80,000. That would be completed in conjunction with the frontage improvements on Wharton, and would be completed as soon as those improvements are done this year. Any questions?
Okay. Any questions? Councillor Carlson?
Is this the only option? To spend the money?
It is the cheapest and simplest option, yes.
And then just based on the information that you had versus what's really down there, it's going to cost twice as much money. Would this be telling of what's to come in our asset management, or are we hopeful that maybe this is not happening everywhere and it's just an oversight?
Yeah, I guess what we found is this pipe was installed in 1974. There was a stamp on the pipe when it was exposed. So, yeah, it's definitely an issue with record drawings from the past that weren't tracked properly, weren't fully implemented into the GIS systems as they're being developed. So this is, I'm not going to say this is the only error that we'll find, but yeah, this.
We should put a little bit of extra thought and money towards things like this, I guess.
That's why we have capital
In our asset
reserves.
management planning process.
Yes.
Thank you.
I just one second, Councillor Barkwell. So if I'm looking at 4, I guess they all have it on there. The round part, that's a manhole, that's like access to the sewer, the manhole cover on the, well, either, yeah, on 4. The bottom right, there's the green. So that, because it was extension to service the development, the developer's paying for that?
They're paying for the extension. The district is paying for the oversize of that main from the roundabout to that manhole. That was the oversize from 250 millimeters to 750.
Okay.
To accommodate this future connection that should happen in the future, which is.
But it has to happen
now.
more, yeah, okay. And then, so will all of that work be done at the same time? So the enlarged pipe and then the extension, that'll all be at the same time? So it'll be as, least disruption as possible?
Yeah, and the development will be working on that half of Wharton already, doing the frontage improvements for the curb and sidewalk, as well as replacing the road surface to center line of Wharton. So it'll just be tied.
So it'll be coordinated at the same time? Okay,
Correct.
thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks. Councillor Holmes.
So Wharton Street would be closed for a time while this was going on?
At least one lane of it will be. Yeah, they're anticipating though trying to restrict the work zone to small enough that it would just be traffic control to allow two-way traffic alternating through there.
Councillor Barkwell.
Could we go back to the first slide that you had up there? So this is how you thought it existed, right?
Yes, and everything did exist except for that connection.
And so, why does that connection that you didn't know was there change anything? Could you just leave it in the ground or take it out, or just continue on with the original plan and ignore that you found the pipe? Or is it because it doesn't drain well enough?
Exactly, it's because the downtown relies on this pipe connection. It was the thought was that this last manhole and along the way had infiltration that handled the flows, but and that was passed on from previous operator knowledge and our current staff's understanding, and there haven't been any issues with the downtown to date as far as drainage, and now we know it's likely because of this pipe connection that's allowed this to
flow off
and not infiltrate as we had previously anticipated.
So you don't know for sure, but you think that that pipe has been used by water flowing through the whole system?
Yeah, we're investigating it further now and looking at the pipe on Wharton to do some further investigation so we have a better understanding for our records, but yeah, that's what we feel right now. Yeah.
Okay, any other questions? Oh, Councillor
I'll move a motion.
Oh, thank you.
As presented.
Okay, and seconder? Councillor Holmes. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? None. So that's carried. On to 12.1 correspondence or information items. Anything there that someone would like to bring forward? Did Devin just leave? Oh, okay. I had talked to, I'm looking at the Penticton Indian Band letter that refers to the proposed mineral exploration that, they're continuing on with that. And I was asking him if that is the same area that was impacting our shared community watershed as the last time. Do you know, Chris?
I do not know offhand, no.
Okay.
We could look into it and bring back information to council if you wish.
That'd be great. Just a quick email would be great. And then if it is the same one, and because I know that Mayor Fortin in Peachland also had concerns about that, then we can perhaps discuss supporting this letter and sending a letter of our own to Minister Mungall. Okay, so that was that. Anything else that people wanted to bring forward? Okay, so could I have somebody bring that information forward, or correspondence forward? Thank you, Councillor Holmes, Councillor Patton and Councillor Traynor. All those in favor? Okay. Committee and commission minutes, anything that needs to be brought out or changed? Councillor Holmes.
Yeah, just the Cultural Development Committee meeting minutes. I'm a bit confused. At the top of the page, it said it's the February 19th meeting, right? February 9th. And then at the end, it's adjourned the March 5th meeting was adjourned. So either it was a really long meeting. Or else the dates are mixed up.
I think it's probably March the 5th, because it does show the next one was April the 16th.
Whoops.
Okay, so that's just a, thank you for catching that, Councillor Holmes. Anything other than that? So with that one correction, then, could I have someone bring forward those? Thank you, Councillor Carlson. Seconded, Councillor Patton. All in favor? Okay, great. On to Councillor reports. Councillor Carlson.
I don't have a report tonight.
Okay. Councillor Patton.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I was at the KBR board meeting this week, and a couple things came up. The KBR, the board of directors would have been in contact with the district in regards to a statement of significance or a letter of significance. They did have one and have forwarded to the district to have it redone. They submit it with their grant packages as helps them get their grants. And so, if I may, I would like to find out from staff when one could be ready, or if it's ready, or it was, I believe it was about 2.5 months ago that they requested. So I'll just, so the second item they were talking about was, I'm going to put them in contact with Jeremy in regards to their lease. I believe their lease is up, and so I can get them in contact with you. Thank you. The third item is, I would like to invite them to a committee of the whole meeting. I've been talking with our Director of Finance, and as you're aware, the KBR put well over $200,000 into the trestle that was completed in the fall. There's a lot more work that they're doing on the apron and whatnot, and so I would like them to address council through committee of the whole. And as you're aware, we have in reserve from the province, from some work we had done on the trestle some time ago, approximately $30,000. And with this work that's being proposed that's going to be done back up on the trestle again, I would like them to come forward to council and plead their case to see if we can help them in regards to utilizing some of that reserve fund for doing that work.
Okay. So there's a process for a delegation. Could I ask
Nicole?
Through you to Nicole, to ask Nicole, yes, thank you.
Good idea.
Good.
Yeah, if you could just forward me the board of directors' email, President.
How about if I get her to contact you? That's even
then
better?
I'll get her all the
Perfect.
information she needs.
Perfect, thank you. And my last is kudos to staff for the skate park grand opening. That was a lot of fun. And I thought it was very very entertaining. There was a lot of people there. I found it quite interesting as we're talking. Dan Ashton's speaking about wearing helmets, and you turned around and there was a whole bunch of kids there with no helmets going back and forth. But anyways, it was fun. And kudos to staff. They did a fantastic job. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Councillor Holmes.
Yeah, just a quick update from the RDOS last week. The board passed a motion that the RDOS expressed their support to the province and federal governments for a single-use plastic ban. And the idea was to support the higher levels of government to create a ban on single-use plastics rather than having local governments create a patchwork of different regulations around the province. That would also be more efficient for businesses rather than to deal with one set of rules than follow a whole bunch of them. So that motion was passed and letters will be sent. Chamber of Commerce meeting on June 12th. One thing that was discussed was the new approach at the landfill to make sure checking everybody's addresses as they came in, and I've actually spoken to quite a few people about that, and almost everybody's in favor. They understand why we're doing it, and they support that we're doing it. But there is a recognition that it is causing some delays, and so the chamber was wondering if it was possible that builders and regular users of the landfill could maybe put a decal or something in their window so that people could recognize right away that they've got their truck is from Summerland. So I don't know. I leave that with the Director of Works over there, because I know you're listening intently. And that's it.
Thank you. If I could just interject just for a second, Councillor Holmes has reminded me, and our corporate officer has as well, we need to get our UBCM affairs in order because the deadline is quickly approaching. So start thinking about those. I have a couple of ideas. We want to get as many minister meetings as possible. Councillor Traynor.
I don't have anything to report tonight.
Okay. Councillor Barkle.
Nothing to report.
Alrighty. So, motion to adjourn? Oh, pardon me. Oh.
Waiting patiently.
Yeah. Do either of you want to comment?
I have nothing to say. I'm a ride.
That's over.
Oh, I could have given you a lift home.
Hi, John Russo, 10834 Dunham Crescent. I'd just like to speak to a couple of things that I heard at this meeting. Wonderful meeting. I'm glad of a lot of the outcomes from this evening, the Garnet Valley and the resolution down on Dunn. One of the observations that I had in regards to the Dunn estimates, I think it's the septic field cost is completely out of whack. Having recently built a septic field on a very geotechnically challenging slope over 30 degrees that traversed a high-pressure Fortis gas line in the last 2 years. I spent a total of $14,000 on that design build-out, and it was ridiculous. That lot down on Dunn is flat unless there's a bunch of remediation work that needs to be done to the soil and whatnot. That estimate's completely out of whack. I'd also, you mentioned the total revenue generation of the Dunn properties being $30,000 a year in total?
That's for all rental properties.
All rental properties in Summerland only generate a total of $30,000 annually. And the per month rental cost on that particular residence down on Dunn, is that public information? $1,000 a month? For how many square foot a house? Is it roughly, is it 2,500 square feet?
I don't know off the top of my head.
Okay. 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 I would urge council to put a resolution forward reviewing that budget and potentially get it cross-referenced from some local contractors. I think that in a situation like this where there's a family facing eviction, I think that you'd see philanthropic efforts put forward in order to rectify this situation, especially in the face that this family's suffering from losing their house to fire in the first place. So I would be happy to spearhead a collective of contractors that would be able to focus on an effort to remediate that property. So anyway, the other thing, as my wife grew up in Janet Ritchie's house, and I lived there for 7 years myself, and having spent my entire youth on stage at Center Stage there in various music performances and plays, Russo Collective Limited will donate any and all design, material, and fabrication required in order to bring honor to the donors of Center Stage in the form of plaques or signage with Janet Ritchie's name on it. Angelique, if you and I can hook up after for contact exchange, I'd be happy to help you with any of that. If that's the district's intent and council's intent, that they want to bring honor to those donors, we'd be happy to help in any way we could. The other thing that I noticed, you're seeing more and more in Europe, the integration of solar panels on roofs of residential applications, especially new construction. It's a law. You have to have solar collection on the roof of your house. So I'm just wondering if that's been discussed, and I think that in discussing that, you discover and address two things. You move closer towards the step code, which BC is moving towards from an energy perspective anyway, which was discussed earlier through Corinne's presentation. And you also free up some developmental land for future residential use. You get both. You get both residential development and closer to step code. However, the remediation required on that site, if you guys do decide to go with that, is going to be way larger of a number than we can imagine, and I would urge council to look into the remediation number as well.
Okay, thank you for your comments. You're well over the 2 minutes. Mr. Thompson, you're all good. You're just here to give the ride home. Okay, and I don't see any media here, so now I will ask for adjournment, please. Councillor Patton, Councillor Holmes, all those in favor? Thank you.